getting like a little house that has like a nice yard and having a garden and having a family. A lot of people look at that because of the way in which society is moving, of like having no kids and
so like let them do.
Yeah, of course, for some people, but that's the outlier.
And we live in a democratic society. You have to make that argument. It's the onus is on you. If you believe that's a lifestyle that other people ought to live, then the onus is on you to prove it. Like show, like, hey, this is a lifestyle that's more fulfilling. You either preach this through your communities, you preach it through your churches, you do it through the media that you have people engage in, whatever you want. Make the argument for that lifestyle. And there will be people that'll be like, you know what? I want to make this sacrifice. I want to have a kid. I want to get rid of like what I'm doing, in the past. But you can't just expect everybody to automatically throw away what is otherwise. It could be like really fabulous, really fun, really carefree lifestyles and say like, because we need to keep breeding to like forward our race, or because there's some like weird imperative like religiously or biologically or whatever otherwise, you can't just say that people have to do that if you can't make the argument for it.
Well, I can make the argument, and I would say,
before you do that, I'd like to just clarify something.
Hang on, can I jump in here? We've heard from the opposition.
Let Jimmy do it. He hasn't spoken for a while.
Thank you. Yeah, fuck you. I love you. I'm sorry. So Marie. So let's say we were to grant you everything you said, right? Hey, and I think we did kind of earlier, right? We said, hey, maybe there's some overcorrection happening in some parts of society. We went to like academia, and said maybe people are being encouraged not to settle down until they're like too far in their adulthood or whatever the fuck. Maybe you're correct about this, right? But how does that amount to there being a war on women? So people being encouraged to take to pursue lifestyles that you think are detrimental. How does that amount to there being a war on women in this country?
Well, I wasn't really making that argument, but that argument can be made that if we are putting women down this path of being in HR and thinking that's going to create happiness, and then they just get so far along, we're having children.
But we're not really putting them down
become more unsafe.
Oh, yeah, but how is
really?
Hey,
like I really do think we are, because when there's all these influencers.
Just to be sure we hear both of you, just to be sure you're separate.
Well, I'm just saying, how does selling a lifestyle, which is basically what's happening, it's just saying, hey, don't settle down and have kids when you're 18 years old. Maybe explore your options, maybe pursue a career, whatever the fuck. They're basically just selling a lifestyle, and some people agree they like the product that's being sold to them, so they pursue it. And so how does that, them choosing of their own free will to go down this lifestyle path that you think is going to lead to them having like a long-term negative outcomes or whatever, how is this us forcing anything onto them? They can choose, like Destiny said, to do the trad wife thing. They can choose to have 10 kids, start helping out kids the moment they hit 18 years old. And we're not saying that, hey, you can't do the trad wife thing, or you should be shamed for doing the trad wife thing. We're just saying, hey, you shouldn't try to force people into boxes, and we should provide the options and let people go where they want to go.
No, I'm not arguing that you shouldn't, that like this is something like you should force upon people. I'm actually arguing that the opposite is actually in a way being societally forced onto people. That was my argument. I'm not saying we should force anything. I'm arguing that sort of lifestyle of living in a city, these are the things actually being forced upon people because they are made to believe this is the only way to live. This is the only way to get a job. This is the only way.
But like, if you're going to make the argument that this type of lifestyle is being forced onto women because it's kind of glorified or whatever, we can make the same argument before women were entering the workforce in the same way, right? We can make the same argument that like, oh, well, we glorified homemaking and women are kind of being indoctrinated, and now
does that make it so that their biological clock is going out if they're going into homemaking, or is there actually like an adverse effect actually being happening?
What do you mean by biological?
Well, yeah, there are studies that show that women who are stay at home are actually like more likely to suffer from depression, things like that, right? This whole idea that women are happier at home is a complete myth. You're telling me
women who have like a stable home are more depressed than women who live in the city?
Well, they don't have a stable home. A lot of the time they have like a more economic stability because they don't have their own source of income.
Yeah, Marie,
people
who
are
married and who are religious are more happy on average.
But like, I think the problem here is that like we're using this language called like forced, and like we have to move away from that because it's not true that women are being forced, but it is true that women are encouraged to go into certain fields. And the reason why we know this is because we're having this panel right now, and one of the topics is the wage gap, and the reason, a large reason for that wage gap, is the choice of field that men and women get into. And so we look at these gaps, right? The gap in income or gap in STEM, and we say that this is necessarily bad, that women are not, reaching the same standards as men. And it's not necessarily bad because it's fine if women are choosing to do other things with their life. So like, I think that that's what we should focus on, is that like it's not forced per se, but it is obviously encouraged.
Yeah, and we got to keep in mind that what happened on the other side historically, if we want to talk about history, is that 100 years ago, women didn't have the right to work in the same way that men do, right, or did. Right? They didn't have the right to vote in the same way that men did. Right? So that was something actually being enforced upon women through government policy to keep them in a certain box. Right, and now the box is gone, and women I think all that society is doing right now is encouraging women to pursue these other options that they now have access to. Right, so I don't think anybody's being forced to do anything. And if you're saying, hey, these women are being sold like a bill of goods or whatever, and it's actually bad for them, sure, that's great, but make the argument, and maybe people will listen to you. I don't think there's anything being forced upon anybody. And Nick, I think you're going to have to demonstrate for your side of the argument, because I think you do want to put women back into that box. You're going to have to demonstrate why that box is beneficial to us today, right? And
I tried to do that earlier, and then I got cut off by that girl. And I was going to answer Stephen, my best friend, who posed the question and said, why should they not be allowed to do something that's fulfilling or something like that? Here's the thing. It's not about women's fulfillment. And the other thing is, it's also not an individual society. I'll just say it very plainly. It's not a question of, are women happy, not happy? Are they fulfilled, not fulfilled? The feminist society isn't working. And we know that it's not working because of one reason alone. Family formation is not happening. The fertility rate is below the replacement level. Society is not regenerating itself. You could say that maybe the best metric, the surest metric, maybe the most relevant, or one of the only relevant metrics is, are men and women getting together and forming families successfully, staying together and having kids, because that is what you need to perpetuate the society. That is what you need to imbue culture from one generation to the next. That's what you need to have a next generation, is for men and women to get together. And ever since, and you can see this across the developed world, and some people say this is because of the economy. Some people say this is because of technology, but and certainly those things correlate. The fact is that all of these societies where women have this role in the workplace, where women are being educated, where there's co-ed workplaces and education, families are not being formed and the next generation is not proceeding. Now, the same cannot be said in the Middle East. The same cannot be said in Africa. Same cannot be said, well, increasingly it is, but historically in Latin America. The feminist idea is failing basically on that metric alone. And so if you have a society that's blowing up and exploding because it's shrinking every year, because men and women are not getting together, because women are going out and exploring work and men are not interested in that, and then they're not forming families and not having kids, you don't have a society. That is the quintessential problem. And why are you having that problem? You're having that problem because men and women need to be getting together when they're fertile.
Nick, and why do you want to live in the Middle East?
Wait, hold on, no, stop. Why do you think
honestly, I would. I said that on my show last week. They're building the line in Saudi Arabia. It sounds awesome. There's no alcohol. Women can't drive. They're forced to wear burqas.
So you are
it's a super city.
I'm muting you guys real quick. Remember, I said that conservatives will pivot towards this. They'd be okay with living in the Middle East or living in Africa. This is really important to understand.
But Nick, wait 1 second. So Nick, so Japan has a lower birth rate than the United States does, right? They also have a very patriarchal society, right? That does push women into, I think, traditional Japanese roles, right? That are I think pretty similar to traditional Western roles. So why do you think their birth rate, given that they have a much more patriarchal society that is being enforced, why do you think their birth rate is so much lower than ours?
I don't think that's entirely true. I think that women are working in Japan, and I don't really know that much about
It's just the fact that they're working? Like that's it.
Well, isn't that kind of the question of this debate?
It's
the role
not.
of women in society?
It's not, though.
Yes, it absolutely is. If women are, you just talked about women being given the option to be educated and work, and you say it's not relevant if women are to a large extent being educated and working in Japan. That's the principle. That is one of the things that defines modernity, along with technology, along with education. It is the expansion of the role of women. That's how you classify it. That's why we say Africa's primitive.
I think when we talk about this,
a bigger predictor is the welfare state.
So I think one of the big philosophical question here, and people from the left run from it, I don't think we should. I think it's a thing to talk about, right? Is there's this unspoken assumption that we ought to be slaves to the continuing of society. And I think that assumption can be challenged. I don't think that you have the right to tell 50% of the population, that we are necessarily going to force you to live a certain type of lifestyle, because if you don't, then within 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 years, it might be the case that humanity goes extinct. I don't think that that's acceptable, that you are forced to carry the burden of the existence of the future of the human race through the way that you live individually in your life. It might be the case that at some point far off into the future that like having a smaller population becomes, you know, some sort of negative, but I don't think we're at that point right now, right? It would probably reduce energy expenditure around the world and make it easier for people to live in different areas. Maybe our cities wouldn't be as crowded, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that you need a stronger argument than the birth rates are negative. I don't think that in and of itself is an argument that's strong enough to force people to commit to a certain type of lifestyle.
Well, it's not about forcing them. It's just about recognizing objectively the success of the feminist project. And if you could say that a society is succeeding, if you could say that a society is thriving and vital, you would say that all of those things are bound up in whether or not families are being formed and kids are being made. So it's not to say that we're slaves to continuing the generations. It's to say that's the metric of a successful society. Because societies that are doing that will be around.
But that is what you were saying, though, right? Because you're saying that I'm not saying we have to be slaves to like having families. I'm just saying that we need to have like successful societies. But what you said, your words verbatim, your idea of a successful society is one that's growing in population. Your measure of that was
it will not exist.
Wait, hold on. But you don't strengthen a society just by having more people. There are tons of different ways to strengthen societies. We can talk about it sociologically. We can talk about it culturally.
Yeah, but that's a baseline. That's baseline.
You need strong if it doesn't exist. And
no. Hold on.
Only exists if people have children. Okay. So like you can't have a strong society in the first place.
So if you want, open Wolfram Alpha or get a fucking math friend and you could plug in the functions, do the math. We're not going to lose everybody in 2 years or in 2 generations or in 200. Okay, so the idea that in 10,000 years humanity might go extinct, therefore half the population right now needs to be forced to live a certain lifestyle. Otherwise, we're going to run the risk of not being able to repopulate the planet.
We're doing that with the climate agenda.
No, we're not doing that with the climate agenda.
That's exactly what your side is trying to change the way in which people live because of something.
Changing how people live is not the same as telling people they can't have children. I don't know how you're even making that connection.
You're telling people they can't have certain cars anymore. You're telling people that every year they have to go to the DMV and get their emissions checked for God knows why.
Okay, that's because first of all, because things like
the consumption of goods.
People speaking at the same time.
Things like getting your emissions checked are fine, okay? If you were in LA like 30 or 40 years ago, you couldn't even fucking see outside. It looked like Beijing. The smog was so bad. So some of these like climate policies...
Me with my 2-year-old car, I need to get my emissions checked.
Steven,
if you have a 2-year-old car that passes your emission... If you have a 2-year-old car that passes the emission check, then you're fine. You go and you get it checked and you're good, right? Like people... I was almost really sexist. I'm sorry. People can neglect their cars...
Go there, explore that.
No, I won't. People can neglect their cars for a long time. Just because your car is 2 years old doesn't necessarily mean it would pass an emissions check. You might not maintain your car. You might drive around all day with a check engine light. You might have a catalytic converter or an O2 sensor that doesn't fucking work. Having your car emissions checked is not the end of the world. It's not a bad thing. And there's nothing at ends with saying we ought to have like a cleaner, healthier society, atmosphere, air, oceans. That like there's no that doesn't not work. And then you also say like we don't have to force women to breed to maintain society.
Steven,
it's not like an all or nothing thing.
You so much. You're so right about society and about the environment. But like, why are you right? Because we care about future generations.
No.
We care about the environment being good. And like societies are great when people are willing to care about generations ahead of them and not have this time orientation of like 4 to 8 years.
You're playing a word game. Hold on. We care about the future generations that will exist. We don't care about making a certain number of people in the future generation. Those are two incredibly different things. Hold on. We care about the people that are going to come after us on this planet. That's what we mean when we say future generations. We don't care that we're like committed to create a baseline number of people to go forward in the next generation. That's not what that means.
It's not about creating a specific number. It's about having people at all, right?
Wait, how many people do you think we're losing?
We're losing a significant amount of people, Destiny. The only thing that's offsetting the loss in population is immigration.
China's population is going to halve over the next few decades.
Let me give you a chance to finish.
Wait, you said the world population will halve in the next few decades?
China's.
You think China's population will halve in the next few decades?
Yeah, because their demographics are like insane.
Hold on.
And they're not having a lot of children.
They're not allowed to have a lot of children.
I don't know if China doesn't have it. Is their population going to have or is their birth rate going to have?
No, population.
population.
China is the most populous country on earth.
Wait, hold on. I think we need to justify using birth rates as like an indicator of a thriving society in the first place, right? Because it seems like you listed off like countries in the Middle East and Africa, but the countries that you're lifting off tend to be countries with a very poor quality of life and very low life expectancy.
Hold on, I'm trying to look these numbers up. Does anybody have a projection for China's population? Is it going to be half in does anybody have like a link to projected population of China?
With all these first world nations, as the quality of life increases, as the GDP goes up, as these countries modernize, the birth rate declines, right, across the board, right? So if we can see that the countries where people are reporting happier lives, better quality of lives, where they have like more modernized societies, are the ones with the lower birth rates.
Yeah, you're restating what I said.
Why are we pointing to the ones that have worse quality of lives with their higher birth rates as like an indicator of success?
Because the fertility rate is a direct consequence of the relationship and the relative roles between men and women. That's why. And so, you're just restating what I said. Yes, it tracks with technological progress. Yes, it tracks with economic development. But the fertility rate is principally concerned with family formation and men and women getting together. And you're right. Africa is a primitive civilization. The Middle East is more primitive than the West. That's absolutely true. And the thing is, they're going to be here in 1,000 years on this trajectory because they're growing, they're increasing, and we're decreasing. And I think Destiny, hang on. Destiny, I think you severely underestimate the extent to which the population is shrinking. In the United States, the only reason that our demographic collapse is not moving very quickly is because it's being offset by a massive amount of immigration every year. That's a separate thing about population refreshment or replacement.
Oh, the one-child policy
But if we didn't have that, if you look at the white birth rate, it's far lower than the combined birth rate of the minority non-white population. It's being offset by immigration. Japan is in a demographic crisis.
On hate speech.
I don't know how many years. That's not hate speech. I don't know how many years in the future. It's just math. I don't know how many years in the future it will take for Canada and Japan and China to have no children, but the population reduction is significant. And the point is not to say, well, we need to do this so society is a certain kind of size. In terms of rate, this is a good metric of whether a society is succeeding. If you could say that male and female relationships are good and optimal, you'll say that families are being formed because that means that they're attracting each other and having children. If they're not doing that, then the relationships are poor. And the point is simply to say there are consequences for saying we'll just give women these menu options and women can pick what they like. That's fine and well, but we tried that and now it's having society-wide consequences.
I don't think.
I disagree. Okay, so if anything, we used to. Sorry. So if anything, again, people used to work much longer hours, and it actually was worse for the family. There are higher children dying. Children used to die much more. Women and men used to work ridiculous amounts of hours, and they would still reproduce more. I believe the decreasing birth rates is more of a sign of increased wealth rather than work, right? Because we actually work 8-hour days now, or most people do. But maternal mortality also used to be super high. And so if anything, I would say that this idea, Nick, that you're saying that feminism has created this decline in birth rates, I don't think it's necessarily true. Feminism actually pushed for maternity leave. So women, when they were in the workplace, could take off time for their pregnancies and to attend to their families. So I disagree with this entire sentiment that you have.
I think a much better prediction is the role of the welfare state. The thing is that people used to have children because they wanted to have people in their life that were connected to them that would help them as they aged. That was a very common reason to have children, and people had lots of children for this reason. But now we have the government that's able to implement pension programs and all of these systems that make it so people aren't so concerned about having children because they know that they can save, they know they can put money away, and they know they have these organizations that are going to back them up. So I think that the data shows that a much better predictor is the role of the government as in welfare to birth rates.
I don't think people make this.
No, go Destiny.
I don't think people make decisions on having children based on them taking care of them in future timelines, except for maybe really.
Yes, they do.
Hey, don't interrupt.
That is a very common thing.
Steve is talking.
That is very common.
Seriously, woman-splaining.
He's done it too.
Okay.
Yeah, straight up. Let Steven.
Sorry.
speak.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me make a stronger statement. Nobody is deciding in Western countries.
We're gonna go to Alex.
Yeah, in Western countries, people aren't having kids to take care of them as they get old.
Yeah, why?
Right?
Because they don't need to.
Because we live in civilized societies where you're not going to die on the fucking street if you don't have a kid,
state.
right? No, not because of the welfare state, right?
And effectively. You can't
have the conservative argument on both sides. Okay, you can't say that on one end the welfare state is disincentivizing the birth of children, and that's why our replacement rates are low, and then on the other hand, it's also mysteriously incentivizing the birth of like black children out of wedlock.
I'm not making that argument.
You might not be making that argument, but the type of argument that you're making, that argument is made on every single side. Okay, we can't say that we're simultaneously like pumping out children or not pumping out children because of welfare or not because of welfare at the same time. So I think that when people are making the choice to have children, and I'm pretty sure that when the research shows this, that we can start digging these studies we need to, but I'm pretty sure that it's when people feel like they're in a comfortable spot in their life that they're ready to have kids. I think that's like whether or not you can afford a home, I think is one of them, and whether or not you have good financial stability, I think is another big one. It's not like I need to have kids or else when I'm old, nobody's going to take care of me, unless you're literally in a society that has is so bare bones. And I don't mean the difference between like Canada and the United States and Sweden. I mean like the difference between like fucking Sweden and some country that has like 6 ongoing genocides. Okay, that's the difference.
Yes,
that's the disparity we're talking about.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, hold on. But then the prescription they're giving me is we need to go back to some fucking prehistoric fucking bullshit where we're running around in tribes trying to shit out 20 kids because 10 of them are going to die in childbirth and the other 10 are going to take care of us when we're old, and the fucking voodoo witch lady's trying to remove our kidney to sacrifice for some fucking rain. Okay, I don't know if we want to go back to that society.
The only other parent on
let Alex go. Let Alex go.
Hold on, Alex hasn't gone for a while. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't been able to talk, but one thing that nobody's refuted, and I think we should talk about this on the conservative side too, when we talk about the war on women, what about trans athletes that are biological males like Leah Thomas
that's another debate
against women? No, but I mean, isn't that a war on women? Why can guys with a penis that still is into, women?
Oh my God, just go watch our debate. You already
Well, I'm just saying, isn't that, so you don't think that's a war on women, Brendan?
No, I think you're wasting your time. We've got other shit to talk about here.
You're letting guys compete against women in sports, taking away scholarships. You think that's okay? You don't think that's a war on women?
So no one's taking away scholarships. This is a totally different debate. Just go watch that other debate.
It's about a war on women, Brendan. So if you're letting guys take a pill that says that they're having a hormone therapy and then they get to compete against women, look at Leah Thomas, ranked 457, then became the #1 NCAA ranked swimmer in
How are you still stuck on this?
Wait, hold on.
Because that is a war on women, Brendan. All we're talking about is birth rates. When I'm trying to bring up concrete examples of how there is a war on women, and I'm conservative. And normally I probably wouldn't agree with that, but I think it's very obvious when you're letting trans people compete against biological females. Men, we already talked about the strength. Men have much more strength than women. So it's unfair. That is a disadvantage for women in sports, that they're probably going to lose their scholarship. And then if they speak out against it, they can lose their scholarship. So not only is there a war physically in the sport, they're muted. They're Orwellian society. They can't even speak about it. So yeah, I think there's a war on women from competing and speaking out against the trans movement.
Yeah, and Brenton,
I would say,
to be fair, go ahead, Stardust. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that Doobie said earlier that I think Doobie put it really well, that there is some level of an attack on the identity of a woman from both sides of the political sphere, and I think it's wise for us to at least acknowledge that there's at least a little bit of that.
Yeah, I don't think we gain anything by shutting down.
So I win the debate.
It is totally within the scope of the war on women, quote unquote, right? Like the attack.
Fuck, there's a lot of people who are driving me crazy.
Shut it down is really unproductive.
No one is attacking a concept of womanhood. What's happening is that womanhood is.
What are you talking about? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They're saying biological men with a penis can be a woman. You're saying gender. You think because you don't believe in biology.
Yes, I believe in science. I believe in
because you're not based in reality. That's not science. Science is a testicle and dick. A testicles and dick. That's science.
He's such a weirdo.
But I got it the same way I give you a chance, Alex. I got to give Brenton a chance to quick respond.
Yeah. Okay, so we are not destroying, in just the same way that gay marriage does not threaten straight marriage, trans women do not threaten regular women. We are expanding a concept to fit with a changing world. Now, this has affected ways that we run sports in a number of ways. It's also affected ideas like, how do you handle bathrooms? These are questions that we need to answer coming forward, but it is not going to do any good to anyone for us to simply act like this is a zero-sum game between womanhood. Just because a woman can become a man after HRT and is treated like one, that doesn't hurt me as a man. It doesn't hurt anybody here. And
Brendan, it hurts. If you let a lesbian with a penis go into the women's locker room, that hurts him because they can sexually oogle women. And that is a real thing. Trans women that still have a dick, just like Leah Thomas, going in the women's locker room and changing, that is a war on women. That's disgusting.
Dude, this is
Men should not be allowed to go in there.
This is just you, Alex.
Wait a minute. I think we can say that so I would make the statement, like I personally believe that trans women, yes, are women, but there are still issues that affect biological women in a unique way.
Can a trans woman have a period? Can a trans woman get pregnant?
I'm not disagreeing. Alex, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. Sure. Okay, so there are ways in which biological women still have unique issues that they face that trans women don't. And yes, there's like a biological advantage that some trans women have over biological women, right? So I think it's important for us to acknowledge that. I don't understand the whole discourse about trying to like say it's exactly the same. We know it's not the exact same experience, right?
No one's saying it's exactly the same. When people say trans women are women, what they're saying is that trans women should be considered women within our society.
Yes, and they are, and I agree with that. So I think trans women should be considered women, but I think just like we do with any other group of women, we also can acknowledge that there are different realities based on your biological makeup, based on the life that you lived, and so there are different categories within women that are going to affect certain women differently, and there are ways that biological women are going to be affected by certain things.
You just said there's multiple realities. That's not real. There's not multiple realities.
Okay, I maybe I phrased it wrong. I could have phrased it wrong. I'm so sorry.
And Iron Man and all that is one reality. Okay, as a man's world.
Is it okay? Because Brenton, I think
Stardust.
Yeah. Brenton, I think
everybody's saying about the way I'm saying woman. I'm saying it the right way.
You're saying woman.
It's women.
You're saying woman, but like it's plural.
You want me to say women? I can say women, but
women is the plural of
person. Hold on, but Brenton, I think dismissing this is like Alex's obsession or something is, I think, like not real, right? I think so. What do you say to like a leftist, for example, who comes to you and says, "Hey, I think that trans women in transitioning to their new gender are actually reinforcing a ton of patriarchal stereotypes about what it means to be a woman, what it means to look like a woman, what it means to speak like a woman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." Right? They're actually reinforcing the patriarchal social roles just through their existence, and your embrace of them is actually helping that patriarchy along, this thing that they've been trying to dismantle for decades. So what do you say to a leftist that would say that to you? Because that is a very common position among feminists.
Among TERFs, but yeah, okay. So what feminists. I would say to that, okay, sure. TERFs are not feminists.
Yes, they are.
All right. God. So anyway, what I would say to that specifically is, first of all, patriarchy is not the only thing that is holding you down, and you should know this if you're a feminist, because kyriarchy overrules patriarchy. Kyriarchy is a more, I guess.
Are you mansplaining feminism to me right now? No, I'm just.
No, I'm mansplaining it to the TERF. So, like, what's happening there is that you have to look and keep your head in the game, like, and see what is going to benefit women and the rest of society more. Is it going to benefit women and the rest of society more to attack and abuse a minority within that society, or is it going to benefit us more to I guess, broaden our idea of gender, to broaden our idea of what a woman's role is and what a woman is? The more options you have, the better it's going to be. And people will then be able to work with others to bring out the best in themselves and others. So the idea, I can understand why someone might feel attacked by the idea of women changing, just like I can see someone who might feel attacked by the idea of men changing and taking on different roles. But the fact is, this is society. This is life. This is humanity. Change is the only universal constant, and you can never get away from that.
But that doesn't mean we need to change all the time, anytime like a proposed
Certainly
change comes
not.
up.
Yeah,
and
no,
so these women,
hate this.
please, so these women who are,
that,
oh God, please,
yeah, go
I love
ahead,
you, Taft, but I think it's I think you just demonstrated, right, how you kind of dismissed the fact that I think that a lot of trans women, when they attempt to pass as a woman, are actually reinforcing the stereotypes, right? That seems to be the case, right? And you said, hey, well, they need to realize that it's not just. What do you think
they need to pass?
That even though trans women are reinforcing patriarchal stereotypes, what you should actually be focused on is the kyriarchy and how that's also oppressing you, right? But this is still reinforcing patriarchal stereotypes.
If you're attacking kyriarchy, you're not. Patriarchy is a subgroup in kyriarchy.
And then further, if you are saying that, hey, also you need to be okay with what they consider to be males, men, being in your spaces, being in your sports, being in women's abuse shelters, being in women's prisons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But maybe having access to grants in education that are formed and put in place for women to try to knock through the glass ceiling, whatever the fuck, that the patriarchy has put in place in the past. If you're giving these men access to all these things that were meant for women, you are actually damaging women in some way. So you need to deal with that argument. It doesn't make sense to just dismiss it as like Alex's obsession or to tell them to focus on the kyriarchy. That's not. I don't think that's productive.
The idea, and again, anytime we bring up every time we bring up biological woman, it's not that somebody is saying that trans women are not women, but anytime you bring up biological women and their unique struggles that they face, people automatically assume that you're excluding trans women from the status of woman when you're not. There is just a difference in what biological women have to deal with. There is a biological disadvantage to being a woman. You are
that's for real.
Yeah.
Now that's true. That's the truest thing I've heard
also,
all night.
And again, I would say that I don't see why us talking about how biological women have their own unique struggles is somehow excluding trans women from the label of woman. We're not doing that.
It's not, but the problem is that bigots will use the word biological.
So we just stop talking about actual issues because bigots will take advantage of the language or whatever.
No, but you just have to be careful when you're having that conversation because a lot of people just sadly aren't very smart and don't think in this in a very nuanced manner. So
but your solution is to shut it down.
I am
to dismiss it and shut it down. Right, so you're dismissing and shutting down the real concerns of women in our society to support like what 1%
so
of
I am
the
dismissing the
population?
concerns of one tiny group of radicals.
No, that's not true.
That is true.
That is no.
Yeah,
I
not
think
true at all. Like elections are going to be won or lost on this.
If you say so, I
absolutely. Yeah, like.
This is not a small amount of people. You are a man, so you may not actually understand how women feel about this issue because it's
I understand
always
how right-wing women feel about this issue.
It's not just right-wing. Are you kidding? It's a lot of
women. It's really frustrating for me.
Exactly. 1% at a time.
I'm trans, right? And presumably you are like saying these things for my benefit, but like. For the benefit of trans people.
I speak the truth as I see it. I don't say it for anyone's benefit.
Not trying to help trans people, but I'm very frustrated by like the left's decision to try to like weaponize trans identity towards gender abolition. And I said this earlier, but like if you want to make a distinction between like cis women or trans women or call like trans women like galoopa-goops or like whatever the word is, whatever the sound orientation coming out of your mouth is, like I don't think it matters. Like what matters to me ultimately is that I can like wear the kind of clothes that I want to wear. Like that's the important thing. And I'm really frustrated by like people trying to make it so much more than it is. It's not that complicated. And like I don't think that trans women need to be like institutionally allowed into every space that cis women have ever been in. That's not the purpose of like my life or my activism or what I'm trying to get by like just transitioning. And so I think that like it really does people a disservice when you turn them into political pawns and try to use like a specific person's,
and also say that only one type of woman
Britton,
that
do you think trans women should have access to free abortions, Britton?
Well, I think everyone should have access to free abortions.
Even trans women. See, that shows you how unbased in reality you are if you think a trans woman.
No, I'm an anarchist, idiot.
So that just yeah, but just because you're an anarchist, you're the idiot that thinks trans people can have babies, dude. You're the idiot. You don't even understand.
There's
simple
very
science.
unique issues to cis women who also cis women who have a lot of children actually have unique health problems that trans women are not going to have to deal with, right? Cis women are again going to be just biologically a little bit weaker on average than the average male.
A lot.
Okay, a lot, a little, whatever you want to say. Okay,
went a little bit differently.
Okay,
I could fight you
little guy, calm down.
Yeah, well, you're a man.
Exactly. Look at my muscles.
I think we need to acknowledge at a certain point that just like we treat a different population within women, sorry, I've been saying it wrong, chat. Women, we treat like specific populations within the women category, like people of color or disabled women or all of that. We can do the same with cis women and trans women. Am I saying it right now? Are you guys happy?
Yeah.
I'm happy. You know, it's weird. Okay, so throughout this whole thing, there's been this point that keeps coming back when people are like, men are stronger. And what's the problem here is I feel like strength, like physical strength, which is, you know, tends to be more a masculine thing, is being confused with power. And that men are more powerful because we are stronger. This is not true. And in fact, you know, a good example of this would be the PKK/YPG. The YPG was an all-female fighting force. They are still holding their territory after being betrayed by the U.S. government. They're the single best warriors, local warriors against ISIS.
The YPG are all-female fighters? The Kurdish people in Syria? Is that true?
In the same way that a man would, but they will absolutely exercise power.
I don't think that's the issue, though.
Men are actually smarter.
I mean, it's the issue.
That's why I'm winning this debate.
I don't know if I buy that.
I'm going to disagree with that.
I want to jump in here on the question of here's why that matters. It's because
there's a division. There's a large division that's all female.
Together,
okay.
I think Alex is the biggest one here. It's like we could elect a leader amongst us or something, but if Alex is the biggest one in the room, and the leader, whoever said, well, hey, I think it should be this way. You know, Alex could just like get a big rock and smash it over the other person's head. And that's a definition of power. And the thing is, most interactions in society it's not a warfare scenario where there's arms. You know, most domestic scenes and most workplace scenes and physical intimidation, it works with strength and size. And and the other thing too is that men are smarter. So, and from that proceeds, by the way, from that proceeds the relative roles, not necessarily. From that proceeds the roles of men and women, but it also indicates something about men and women, which is that men and women are fundamentally different. And I think that maybe one of the big differences in our worldview is that I am not an individualist. I don't believe in this abstraction of the individual, which is sort of sexless, raceless, who should have rights and get to say what they want to do in society. Because it's really not an individual.
I'm literally an anarcho-communist. I am not an individualist.
Okay, well, Destiny is, and I think the trans person is individualist as well. And this presupposes that there's not fundamental differences between men and women, and then as a consequence, they have to be treated differently. Everything about them is different. These are essential differences. And so to say that we're just going to say, oh, men and women are just going to have the same roles and men can become women and women can become men, it is a fundamental misundersting of the composition of society. So where are the essential differences?
Well, I would just say, I disagree. I think just because men...
I'll give you a really quick and pithy one, Stardust, and then just in case anybody hasn't spoken for a while, Marie and April. Okay. Go ahead. All right.
So just because men and a woman may have inherent differences in what they do and what they gravitate to doesn't mean that we don't create a society where anybody can choose to go outside of that role if they feel the need to, if they feel like their calling is outside of that role. And I also wanted to touch on one subject. Doobie brought it up very briefly, but the idea of passing I thought was really interesting because I feel that there are a lot of trans women who pass better than cis women, especially just with the way that norms are and the beauty standards that we have and stuff like that. And so I thought that was a very interesting point. I know a lot of cis women who feel that they don't pass as well as a lot of trans women. So.
Brendan, are you bisexual? Is that true that you're bisexual, Brendan?
Why does that matter? Why is it relevant?
So which sex do you like? Which sex would you rather have sex with?
Why is it relevant to the conversation?
It's a good question.
But who do you prefer to have sex with, men or women?
Alex, when you jerk off last,
I prefer to have sex with multiple people at once. So Yeah.
Oh, gross. So much information.
Multiple dudes.
No, if we're getting
he just said he just said he jerks off to the WNBA.
Are you worried about monkeypox? At least
Alex,
it's
last time you jerked off, like which page of the Bible were you looking at?
When I cranked it, I was watching the WNBA. I was watching the Liberty.
Okay, that's actually the basic.
Yeah, I was looking at AOC, my favorite big booty Latina.
All right, next topic. Before we go into the Q&A, I actually want to remind you, folks, our guests are linked in the description. We're going to go into the Q&A shortly, but I do want to remind you that includes if you're listening at the podcast, we put our guest links in there. So check them out if you want to hear more about their views. Any last closing thoughts? Any final thoughts before we go into the Q&A?
Yeah, I had one really quickly. And so people were talking about passing and trans women passing and them, being overly feminine when they do this. Can you think of a reason why trans women might want to pass beyond simply like pretending to be a woman or whatever, or reinforcing patriarchy? It's so they can get jobs. It's so they can get housing. It's so that they will not be harassed on the street by people like Nick. Like there is a practical reason why they would need to pass and why they would need to, and sometimes probably overdo it with some kind of hyper femininity.
If you want to be a woman, I don't understand that, because if you want to be a trans woman, you're saying you want to be a woman, so wouldn't you therefore logically want to pass?
Yeah, typically
you would want to pass, but
it doesn't really make sense.
Typically, passing is like helps like gender dysphoria or whatever, right? So when they're passing, they feel like they're passing, they don't have to feel as dysphoric, and this is helpful to them.
And they also are in a far less danger from the rest of society.
You're wrong. It's purely autogynephilia. I don't know what you're talking about.
God. Well, I don't think anybody's denying that there are reasons for why people want to pass.
Mm-hmm.
It's just.
I think the best meme is hey, listen, when a Pizza Hut closed down and they tried to put a Chinese restaurant in it, everybody knows it's still a Pizza Hut. So, some things can only change so much. You're always going to know.
God.
And then when you show up and try to order a Pizza Hut at the Wendy's, you look like a fucking idiot. Right?
Okay, dude, but you're just annoyed. Are you trans or something? Why are you so mad about this?
I'm not. Why are you constantly attacking people personally?
I'm not. I'm just wondering why dude be so mad at me. I'm talking about the
Alex is the most emotional person on this panel. Okay.
I wear my heart on my sleeve. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm an emotional person.
Don't ever tell me that women are more emotional than men again, because Alex is here. Okay.
That's true. I'm so emotional. Oh my God, the one women. I agree with you.
Any last thoughts? Anybody else?
Last thoughts.
Can Doobie talk?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. Am I allowed to say this?
No, you're a woman. You're not allowed to say shit.
Okay. So there's been a meme going around on Twitter that everybody calls me white. So I just want to say I'm the new savior of the white race. So just want to let you guys know I have taken the crown. It's my thing now. So yeah.
You got it.
You're not white. You're brown.
No shit, Alex.
I am the new savior, okay? All white men should aspire to be like me, okay? I'm just letting you know I have taken it. Nick, you can try and challenge for it, but it's gone. It's not yours anymore. I have the crown. I am the savior.
We'll jump
Are you trans, Stardust? Are you a biological woman or are you trans?
All right.
I am a cis woman.
Oh, you sure?
I know, I get it. I look very masculine. Maybe this is why this topic,
April.
Anyways.
Yes, middle guy. What's up?
Any last thoughts before we do go into Q&A?
Yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting studies on the values of men and women. Fairman et al., Sue et al., Dykeman et al. And women are more likely to endorse communal, group-serving, people-oriented values. And I think that's why people like Nick are ultimately endorsing a feminine ideology, one that is not very individualistic or competitive or masculine, but one that just basically gives handouts to the people who are not succeeding.
What?
So
I'm not talking about handouts.
That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, and blames the failings of men on women. Yeah, women are succeeding, and I'm not. I didn't
blame it on women. I blamed it on
and
other
I'm not
people.
Married. I'm not married. I don't have kids, and et cetera, et cetera. And it must be because women are pushing me down. The patriarchy has been dismantled. Now the matriarchy is forcing me into my room to yell at women all day on the internet. It seems, I don't know. It does seem pretty feminine.
Yeah, except that's not what's happening. Except that's not what's happening. I said
blaming it on another minority
and then everybody yelled at me.
Well, Nick, why are you?
You can say that on Twitch. You can say that on YouTube. That's
Nick. Traditionally, someone like you would be married at 18 years old. Well, why
but I'm an asexual incel, so that's where you don't understand my life.
I apologize.
Sculptor, not the clay. As we like to say, like Schopenhauer said, I'm the sculptor.
Any other?
But I don't know. Maybe I'll Stardust as a new savior of the white race. I don't know.
Each would make very pretty
maybe we can repopulate the earth.
Look, I'm just saying that all white men aspire to be what I am. So that's
it's true. That's
what it is.
Paku look in your eyes. If more men had that, I think we'd have a different kind of movement. But my closing thoughts on this whole deal. I mean, look, it's just reality. We're talking about men and women. We all know what men and women are about. We all have moms. We all know women in a peer relationship, siblings, friends in school. We know men and we know women, and we know what they're like, and we know where they should be. And women belong as mothers in the home raising their babies. And if they want to take on some little task, they want to, help a man with a research paper or, their husband or something like that, or pick up the phones, I think that's fine. But we need to restore gender roles. We need to have gender segregation. We need to allow men and women to thrive in their separate domains. And we need to cease the elevation of women in these roles where they don't belong at the expense of men. It's killing society. And you could see that in this is just a contributing factor, but the decline in the fertility rate, as well as a number of problems between men and women, within men and women. And on some level, we all understand that feminism is the real enemy. Feminism sort of goes hand in hand with modernity, which is poison. So I would say that
incel with no family, no wife, no kid.
Got to move on.
That's right.
You have no room to talk on any of these issues.
Absolutely, I do. I'm a theorist.
Can I disagree?
I'm a social
I would like to disagree with his statement about feminism.
You're a fat bisexual with a Ukraine pendant on,
Stardust,
and you look homeless. You don't have right to talk about anything.
Brenton, we've heard so much from you. All right, Steven, any last words?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Where are we? What was the topic of this again? Jesus Christ.
I disagree with.
I'm good.
I disagree with his statement on feminism. You can look at how the ways in which feminism. There are obviously cringe people on Twitter, screaming about everything, but that feminism has pushed for things for families historically. So feminism was very much like a family-oriented movement in a lot of ways. So.
Anybody else? Last word?
None of us would be here without our mothers, so we need to lift up moms.
Gotcha. And want to say, folks, our guests are linked in the description. I'm going to jump into the Q&A. If you happen to have a question, you can submit it by adding me, namely at Modern Day Debate, the YouTube channel. We're live right now. If you have a question, come on over. Freaking John says, Doobie needs to speak up. Let's see. And I don't like looking at Brenton. All right. So, folks, I want to remind you, we don't want insults, not even of Brenton. This one coming in from Andrew. Come on, I'm kidding. Andrew Farrell says, for Taft, the economy has changed, yes, but the production of GDP should not come at the expense of the family. Any thoughts, April?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that you have to strike a balance here. And that balance means making sure they're not depriving women of family and of infant rearing, which I think is important on a civilizational level. And maybe Destiny doesn't care about this, but I think it's really important to look way into the future. If it means thousands of years into the future, then thousands of years into the future. And so I think that having children is important. And you ought to preserve that, and you ought to allow women to contribute to the economy where they're able.
This one from Dave Gar says, could you please use more inclusive terms such as soy person or soy human or soy entity in your polls? Yeah. Thank you very much for your question. This one coming in. Bub Savvy says, let's all agree there is a war on humanity. Liberty is mocked on both sides. My liberty, not yours. Where is the state when you need them? All we can hope for is political wins to dominate our political enemies. Simple as that. Thoughts?
I mean, I agree with him in that, the state is involved essentially in a cold war against everyone on behalf of the elite. Yeah, I mean, he's right. I just think he's getting a little dramatic about it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree. The pretense is gone. Now it's a race to the top, race to use the state to crush our enemies. I think it's totally true. And the right needs to drop this liberty business and talk about interest-based politics and power. Yeah, totally agree.
Gotcha. And thanks very much for your question. This one coming in from Bifurcation Station says, let Jesse on. Jesse, like Jesse Lee Peterson? I don't know. Amazing. Next one, Freaking John says, Doobie needs to... Liz, you got that one. Mr. Meme says, hey, Nick Fuentes, explain the transgender is it PM or PRN?
Oh, yeah.
Never mind that. Alan Cummins, great. Alan says, great debate, guys. Nick, what are your thoughts on Lauren and how she lives? Let's see. I don't want to do anything when Lauren's not here to defend herself. Mr. Monster says, do you think women should be told what to do by men, or are they more powerful, independent of men?
I think that one of the things that I don't think we got into enough is the fact that people are kind of socially conditioned by their society, right? And we talked a lot about, women are inherently this way and men are inherently that way. But there are plenty of examples throughout history in our civilization, in other civilizations, where it is just not the case that people are a certain way, right? Or like inherently. I think you can look at humans all over the planet and find that they do things far differently than we do, and the reason they do that is because they're socially conditioned from birth to behave in a certain way by the culture, right? So just like, I feel like we need to talk about that a little more, because Nick, it sounded like you said that either is just an expression of our understanding of natural tendencies among men and women, or it is just it's just not true that they're socially conditioned. Right, that they're just the way that they are because that's how they are, right? And I think that's clearly not the case.
Yeah, I agree that society exerts influence on people. Of course.
Yeah. So when you were saying that women are inherently this way, or men and women are behave this way and that way, how much of that do you think is socially conditioned?
I think that the social conditioning derives from their biology.
So you think it's just like an expression
derived from fact, and I think that the other social conditioning is derived from ideology. It's derived from ideas and visions. So the question is, what kind of social conditioning do we want? And is the social conditioning working against reality, or is it working alongside reality? And clearly you can see that in a lot of different projects by mankind and a lot of different ambitious political parties and things like that. Some things work with our nature and some things work against our nature. So, but yeah, I don't think that's in dispute. It's just saying things are obvious.
Yeah, I think that is in dispute.
What?
I think there are plenty of examples where men and women in other civilizations act in ways that are far, far, far outside of the norm of Western culture, right, or our culture.
Hard to hear you, Doobie.
Oh, I apologize. I think we can, again, we're talking about history, and we can even look to recent history, right? And this is something I like bringing up a lot because it's really funny. But we could look to even Papua New Guinea 6 years ago, right, where people were socially conditioned to believe that it was masculine for young boys to give the adults in the tribe blowjobs every day because they thought the only way for them to become real men was to ingest semen daily. Right, so from the age of 7 to 16 or something, they're giving blowjobs to the men in the tribe every day, and this was a masculine thing to do. And if they didn't do it, they wouldn't be real men. They would be feminine because they needed to suck the dick to get the feminine influence of their mothers out of them. Right, so I think, and that was a totally a rational, reasonable way for them to behave to them. Right, so given that you have extremes like that out there, or you have cannibalism on the other side, right? I don't think it makes sense to say that hey, women or men or anybody behaves in a way inherently or naturally. I think it's absolutely
that's just a false syllogism to say
primarily
some things are subjective and everything is subjective. That's just wrong.
I didn't say everything.
That is essentially
primarily
what you're saying. There are things that are objective and there are things that are subjective, and so rights
I think you need to demonstrate that something is objective if you're making that claim.
Okay, it's rooted in biology. Men are stronger than women. Women have to bear children. Women are more relational because of that. They think of people and faces and names and are cooperative because they have a biological function to produce offspring. And so, in that, we don't need to get into the science. We're in the Q&A session,
okay,
but
this is
you're saying that they have this subjective tradition, so I guess any behavior.
But what
you
just pointed to is a subjective tradition that's relative to the time and place in which these things were useful, right? I asked you earlier, hey, tell me why we should be appealing to like cavemen social roles in the modern day when we're speaking to each other from across the planet on the internet. Like, why is it useful to say, hey, men are stronger, men are physically stronger, so therefore, they're dominant in our society, or they're dominant this way or that way, and not to say that, hey, women can also interact with our society in plenty of ways that don't involve their physical strength, don't involve any of those biological limitations, as you call them, and take on dominant roles or leadership roles in our society. Like, why should we be using yesterday's like social roles when they just don't seem to apply?
The biology hasn't changed. The biology hasn't changed, and I'm not arguing that men should still be hunting mammoths and women should still be, knitting things out of leaves or whatever.
The fact that you're arguing should means
you're interrupting me.
Because you're saying stupid shit.
Yeah, well, that's not how this works. You want to go live in Papua New Guinea where they're eating people and drinking cum? You probably would like that. You freak. You probably would. You look like you'd like that.
Let's jump into the next. I hate to do this. We have so many questions. Well, Legend Riv says the U.S. is a service sector economy, and most of this sector's industry is women run. BLS Gov admits this, I think Bureau of Labor Statistics. There is no war on women. There is an argument that the deficits created here is damaging the economy. Thoughts, please? Any of you?
What is the sector in question that they mentioned?
The service sector, the largest part of our economy, I think.
The U.S. is a service sector economy, and most of these sectors' industry is run by women. And there is no war on women. There is an argument that the deficits created here is damaging the economy. Thoughts?
There is no argument. Anybody that some people think that like a service economy isn't real, and if you're not like manufacturing like fucking bricks or cinder blocks, you're not actually doing real work. It's it's dumb. Yeah, it's one of those like.
No, Destiny, come on.
It's like that fucking stupid meme where it's like fake jobs and it's like computer programmer, nuclear engineer, astronaut, and then it's like real jobs and it's like carpenter, electrician, guy that fucking shoves his dick in a tree.
Carpentry a service? Isn't carpentry a service job, though?
A service is a job.
Yeah. Well, no. I guess.
Yeah, but you're like producing.
Means like production.
You're doing
like
that is a service.
I'm talking about like where you're like, I guess electrician and carpenter might actually be considered. Yeah, but like when you're anything related to like manufacturing, sure, anything related to like manufacturing, whatever. People think that's like if you're not like making stuff, like working on stuff, it's not like a real job or whatever.
I agree with that. I think that this whole Russia debacle is proving that, because we're like, we're going to cut you off from international trade. And it's like, okay, well, we have all the oil and gas and food and you don't. That's why the British are paying 5,000% premium on gas from Belgium. And I know that was
if you say so. It looked to me like Putin just fell on his face. Like he was supposed to take that country in like a day.
I don't think anybody believed that. He destroyed the Ukrainian army. It's going and
if he had destroyed the Ukrainian army, he would have won. At the moment,
it's ironic that you're an anarchist and you're shilling for like NATO.
Just to be clear, hold on. I'll shill for Ukraine. Okay, the Russian economy is currently fucked.
Yeah,
number one,
the Russians are
and number two, Russia massively fucked up the Ukrainian invasion. It is nothing but weapons grade copium. If you think rolling around tanks on the street with no support and not taking Kyiv in literally 3 days is anything but an abject failure of what people thought the Russian military could do, including Russia itself. So of course that was a massive fuck up.
What, you want to make a bet, Destiny, on who's going to win this war?
Putin's already lost the war. Like maybe they can stop in the way that his goal was like in 3 days. He wanted the city of Kyiv. He wanted a new administration. He wanted Donetsk and Luhansk as breakaway states, and he wanted Crimea to stay his, and he wanted to be over in like 2 weeks tops. That's what he wanted.
I don't think he ever articulated
this. Of course, last, like decades. What other? Going to be a decades-long war, so
And they've humiliated Russia.
I mean, it's already taking a really long time.
Let's take a bet then. We could all. And Destiny, in our debate, you were talking about Russia hitting nuclear power plants. That was a fake NATO story. Just like Russia using chemical weapons, just like all the other stuff. So I mean, we could talk about the current propaganda, but let's just make a bet about.
Sure. What do you want to bet? What do you want to bet on?
Will be. Let's say that by the end of the year, Luhansk and Donetsk totally liberated. And independent states are annexed to Russia.
Liberated.
Wait. Do they count as liberated right now?
Well, I think one of them is Luhansk, I think one of them is completely under Russian control. Yeah, and they're
because this is I need to read a little, but I would almost make this bet with you right now. Maybe I would. Okay, if you're telling me that that Ukraine will recognize them as independent states, like that they'll be like, okay, we've lost that. Is that like a bet you want to make, or you just want to go by like?
I don't think Kiev will. I mean, they may capitulate later on, but they will effectively be under Russian control, and that's what matters. I mean, the United States.
When you say okay, but I'm trying to push you because I don't want you to be like, oh, well. Are you talking like they've brokered a peace deal?
That's not how I sound.
They've brokered a peace deal. There's a ceasefire, and Ukraine is content to say, okay, Luhansk and Donetsk, we're gonna leave this alone for a little bit.
No, I think the war will probably be ongoing.
Okay, then you're not even making a real bet. Okay, just let the record show that you totally walked back from your shit. That's fine.
No, I did not. I said that Luhansk and Donetsk could be liberated by the end of the year.
What is liberate? People would have said that they were liberated a year ago. Like, what do you mean by liberated? Like, if Ukraine, if they're still fighting along the borders, if they're all fighting in the Donbass and Russia's still pouring in military support, everything, how is that liberated?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying they won't be fighting in the Donbass. I'm saying that Russia will have fully secured Luhansk and Donetsk from the control of Kiev. They'll have military control of those places. A referendum will be held. They'll either be annexed or they'll have independence. And
so hold on.
What happened? Did the United States have military control of Iraq?
What?
Did the United States have military control of Iraq?
Not complete military control, but we're talking about a region versus a state.
Wait, hold on. Wait. The United States did. Hold on. The United States literally installed a new government in Iraq. I would say that counts as like complete military control.
We disabled they installed the new government in Afghanistan, and they never controlled the entirety of the country.
That's the point. That's what's going to happen.
Hold on. I don't think Afghanistan.
Russia's going to take all of Ukraine. I don't think that was ever the objective.
It was definitely the objective.
No, it was not. He articulated on February 24th that he wanted to demilitarize Ukraine, liberate Luhansk and Donetsk, and secure Crimea. And I think that's
Vladimir Putin, regular man who tells the truth all the time. He also said he wasn't going to attack.
I don't think he said that. I don't think he said that at all.
Yes, he did.
He said
it was just.
We're totally off topic. We've got to jump into the next one. Olivia says, James, how can you say you're a fair moderator when you told Brenton to shut up and have never once told Alex Stein to shut up in a debate? Well, to be fair, Alex wasn't.
He has told me to shut up. Yeah, but you've told me to shut up.
That's right.
I don't feel like you told me to shut up, though. I will agree. I think you've been a little loose with Alex.
Oh.
Yeah, because I'm a pimp on a blimp, Brenton, and you're a bisexual freak.
All right,
so
let's
go
to
the next one.
Mr. Memes coming with a question for Nick. Says Nick. Let's see. Okay, that's another personal attack. Rumbly Depew says, thanks for bringing these brilliant minds together. Brenton is right. There is a war on women. He proved it when he claimed Breonna Taylor was shot while sleeping in her bed.
Okay. So on the issue of Breonna Taylor being shot while sleeping in her bed, what happened there was, one, I jumped into that debate on like zero notice. And I didn't get the chance to do the research that I normally do. But on the other point of it is that the actual statement, Breonna Taylor was shot in her bed, caught on for two reasons. One, because it echoed the death of Fred Hampton, and two, because even though it was an incorrect statement, it more accurately described the injustice of what happened to her during that raid. So, yeah, she wasn't literally shot in her bed, but she still got the cops busted in her door. It
was spiritually true.
That's really stupid. I'm sorry.
I don't know about spiritually true.
But the fact is, so fucking
if you're
dumb.
trying
sorry, dude.
Yeah, I mean, you can feel that way, but the fact is that if you're trying to get something into a single soundbite, you need to craft it in such a way that the actual idea is communicated.
You need to lie to people and make them feel like the cops are hunting them down in their homes and shooting them all their sleep.
I mean, the cops were doing that, but okay.
No, they did not. That's not what happened.
The cops have been doing that across the country. I mean, freaking Freddie Gray.
Where do cops just murder people while they're asleep?
While they're asleep? That's literally how they killed Fred Hampton.
That was your claim. Your claim was that across the country, cops are busting into people's homes, going to the bedrooms and shooting them.
No, that was not my claim.
What's your claim?
My claim is that the police were completely out of line in what they did, and it was incredibly tragic within Breonna Taylor's situation, as well as hundreds of others.
What was out of line from the police side, other than the dude that was shooting through the window like a crazy person?
I mean, the rest of the police,
that it was a returned fire after her boyfriend shot at the police officer.
Yeah, of course he shot at the police officers.
Okay, I understand the argument about self-defense. I understand, right?
Yeah,
that's fine. We must go on. I hate to do this, but we have so many questions. Legend Rivs says, let women practice their Second Amendment rights if there is a war on them. This gets rid of sexual harassment, fear, and toughens up women. Hashtag Uwagawuga. Ooga wooga.
True.
Next one, Light of the Twin Lamps. This question for Nick. If you support USA becoming a Catholic theocracy, shouldn't you support illegal immigration from Catholic Latin America, who are more likely to support your views than secular USA?
No, because then it won't be America. If we have to fundamentally transform the identity of America, on an ethnic basis, on a genetic and heritage basis, cultural basis, then that's not a Catholic America. I mean, and also, these Latin Americans are not. They're not the kind of Catholics that people say they are. I mean, they vote for abortion, they vote for gay marriage, and all that. So. It's not like they're voting for the Guadalupe Empire or whatever. So, no, I think that's a lot of like soft conservative Catholics believe in that nonsense. It's like a different version of natural conservative from Paul Ryan, but it's like a Catholic bent. So, no, I don't think that makes any sense.
That's up. You got to thank very much. This one coming in from Minecraft Player says, how can there be a war against women if women aren't real? I don't think I've seen one ever. Must be Photoshop. Also, shout out to Sonic Inflation. Okay, gosh. For the first part, disregarding the song. Any thoughts on the first one?
This one coming in. I didn't even understand that.
The legend Rib strikes again.
Just Google Sonic Inflation. You'll get it.
Does the U.S. is officially in a recession?
Is it like Rule 34 or something?
This one coming in. They say the U.S. is officially in a recession with a 2-quarter negative GDP print. Also, savings rates at 5%. Last time that happened was the 2008 recession. Male jobs like production aren't around. Help us out, women. Any thoughts?
Don't Google Sonic Inflation.
That's true.
I don't think we are technically in a recession because I think the government decides when to announce it, and they've chosen a different path.
Well, I think recessions are like very economically technical definitions, and numbers are always revised like up and down depending on like some people would say it's 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, but like there
is no like universally
except what is the definition? Yeah, so like it's hard because like there's disproportionate wage growth right now.
In my economic textbooks, we had definitions of recessions for different countries, so there are definitions. It's actually the 2 quarters of negative.
No, because that's used
negative GDP growth. But that's in an economic textbook.
No,
like it just is there.
I guarantee you.
And I also went to business cycle. It's the business cycle. But it's the business cycle.
April,
as well.
What's up?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, the fact is, a recession is just like a decrease in economic growth, right? Like fundamentally, that's what it is. And like where you draw the line as far as saying like this is enough decrease to be like getting a special title is like
but in a business cycle, it is 2 quarters.
There's a traditional way of defining it, yes, and that is with the 2 quarters. So when I say like there's no official thing, like I'm kind of making fun of the fact that we've decided not to use the traditional definition for this current shrinking of the economy.
Yeah, in 2020, when there were 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth under Trump, everybody said, okay, we're officially in a recession. And, and that was true. But now that it happened, they said, oh, well, in the first quarter, that was because of an increased trade deficit. So it technically doesn't count.
Because I think because trying to figure out if we're in a recession, it really doesn't matter what you call it. The important thing is what is the policy action that we need to take in response to that. And if we act right now like the economy is in the shitter and everything is fucked, there might be certain forms of like stimulus that we might be expecting from the Federal Reserve. Or there might be certain forms of stimulus that we might expect from the federal government. Or there might be other types of actions that we take in order to alleviate the economic problems. But the problem is that whether or not we're having a severe economic problem is really hard to identify. The closure of small businesses is not happening at recession levels. Wages are growing among poor workers at like historic levels. Unemployment is unbelievably fucking low. It's hard to say inflation is growing for sure, but the idea that we're just in a huge shitter economy where there's like a huge recession, that's not true. That's not the lived experience right now of most Americans.
Wait, what are you talking about? That is so wrong. All of the polls are showing that people are in really bad economic situations. You have 500,000 subscribers. You have said that you make X amount of money on YouTube. So like, it's not maybe your lived experience, but for people who are dealing with this and having their mortgage rates go up, yes, it is very much their lived experience, and all the polls lived experiences do back this up.
Polls will ask you if you think
this bet is backed up by surveys.
So polls,
it just is.
Polls, I don't care what an average person surveys for if they think they're doing, good or bad. That's not relevant to literally anything, okay? You can poll an American on whether on if they like the ACA versus Obamacare, and you might get a 50-point difference in the poll. That's not how we're looking at like the economic well-being of people, right? So when you say things like,
it looks at how did you feel last year compared to now when the
I don't care how you feel, because how you feel literally might just be because the president is different.
But it's also your mortgage payments will tell you
your
how
mortgage
you
payments
feel,
shouldn't.
How much money you have. They will change.
Why?
Most people, a lot of people are on variable rates. Not every mortgage is a fixed rate.
If mortgages are going up.
I didn't finish my original point. Hold on. You can't. Yeah. First of all, you should be on a fixed rate mortgage. If you're doing adjustable rate mortgages, that's on you. That's your own shit to figure out. You're a dumb fuck. You deserve to lose your house.
It's been good. It's been a good idea for the last 10 years to be on a variable rate mortgage.
It's called a gamble. Okay. If you want to gamble on a $200,000 plus loan at a variable rate, if rates go up, you deserve to lose your house. Fuck you. You're gambling on the market 100%. So that's number one. That's number one. Lose your house and deal with it.
We're still at all-time lows for interest rates, so I don't think people are going to lose their houses because a 5% is still, in comparison to 20 years ago, extremely good.
5%,
it's still extremely low rate.
Okay.
5% mortgage rates are very low.
Holy shit. Hold on. Wait, it's just like so much dog shit information. If your rate was 3%.
How is that dog shit?
If your rate
How is that dog shit? It is a better rate than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
The rate's not a comparison to what it was 10 or 15 years ago. The rate is going to be compared to what you actually opened your fucking mortgage at. If you open your mortgage at a 2 or 3% rate and your rate bumps 2 points, your payment is going to go massively increasing. It doesn't matter if it was higher 10 or 15 years ago, but if you had a mortgage. She's saying so much dumb shit. No, hold on. No, wait, stop. Stop.
You know we've printed more money in the past year than we have in years past, so you know that we have more money.
That has nothing to do with anything. That has nothing to do with anything.
You don't think that lowers the value of money, the fact that there's more out there?
The USD is literally outperforming every fucking currency in the world right now. What the fuck are you talking about?
There's more of it, so that's why we're having inflation.
No, all right, we have to go to the next one.
Inflation is good if you owe a bunch of money.
Yeah, which you
thank you. This one coming in from Rumpley Depew says, can you ask Nick if he has hated my people ever since the time I filled an empty Fritos bag with salted Mohel scraps and he ate them all? What does that mean, Nick?
I don't know what that means. Whose people is that?
This one coming in from Sausage Lore says, Nick and Destiny, the Hispanic tag team duo. Let's go. Wow, that's pretty neat. This one coming in from Mike. Huh?
I said, yeah, we're BFFs. It's pretty cool.
This one from Minecraft player says, shout out to women. And
wait, who's this black guy?
Huh?
What? Who's this black guy that just jumped on? Oh, wait, Doobie, you're black?
Sorry, I didn't realize that the thing had gone off.
Yeah, I didn't know you were black. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I love blacks. But
learn something new every day. D, thanks very much for your super sticker. I didn't see your question.
How do you talk? You talk like an old man, Nick. What is going? It's like somebody took you. It's like you came out of a time portal from 30 years ago.
What? He's black.
Black. It's literally like somebody took an old guy who was living 30 years ago and put him in a time machine and brought him here and put him in a suit, and that's literally Nick Fuentes.
Thank you. Thank you for
projecting him into a 14-year-old.
What did I miss?
This one going in from GJM.
30 years ago was only 1990 though, so
Pete. Is that true? Oh my
no shot.
He's an old man in 1990. It's even further back.
Yeah. I was born in the 19th century. Yeah.
GJM says, for Brenton, what is the word woman referencing in this context specifically? How do you define a woman?
Yeah, so I've said this 3 times now. My definition of a woman is for someone to do 2 things. 1, identify as a woman, and 2, be accepted by their community as a woman. Woman is a social role.
This one coming in from Light of the Twin Lamp says, we'll talk about that later. The Legend Riv says, if you want info on women in ESG funding, namely environmental safety and governance, visit Ryan Dawson's Substack. What is everybody's thoughts on Ryan Dawson?
I think I've always said this. I think he's cringe. I mean, we agree on 9/11 and all that, but he's like a bleeding heart liberal. He's like, I don't like Israel because they're mean to Palestinians, and I'm like, I don't like Israel because, well.
All right, let's move into the next one.
Okay.
Any other fans of Ryan Dawson? Okay, this one coming in from Vasily says, Destiny says democracy gives everyone a free choice to choose. But would he accept the argument that most Western countries put pressure on women to work, so it can't be called free choice?
I mean, in that case, if you want to go fully deterministic, there's no free choice for anything. There's always pressures to do everything. There's going to be pressures from your church. There's going to be pressure from your community, from your school. Like, everybody's pressured to some extent. We just kind of have to choose like how to balance those pressures out in society. And some of them might be obviously too far, but others can be like a little bit more hidden, right? Like boys are pressured to play video games in a way more than women are, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think you may be edging just slightly on a nirvana fallacy there, Destiny. Yeah, obviously certain things are going to have more pressure than other things. Nothing's perfect, but I think like there's specific things that we see happening economically that push people in a particular direction. I mean, like a good example was me and my wife right now we are weighing whether to have another kid, and the pressures that are on that is not just do we want another kid, it's what's the political situation like, how dangerous is it for this to happen, do we have the money, do we have the stability. So like the larger society puts a huge amount of pressure on people within it and incentivizes certain behaviors and disincentivizes others.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think I said that. But I'm just saying that there's always pressures. There's no such thing. Anytime you live in any sort of society, there's necessarily pressure. Like pressure might actually even be like an intrinsic property of just being a human. You've got biological pressures. You've got pressures in your family. Like there's always going to be pressures to do everything.
I would argue actually that it's an inherent part of being alive. You don't know who you are until you meet like some sort of thing that's not you.
Like the end of Evangelion. You ever see that show? It's like it's like that.
That's like the one anime I haven't gotten into. I'll check it out though.
I think the distinction here that you can legitimately make is that when the government engages in pressure, when the government puts its thumb on the scale, that has a much bigger impact than other things. Not than anything, but it has a big impact because the government ultimately has, monopoly on violence. So the ability of the government to influence things through, for example, like affirmative action is just really powerful. And that's why you got to be really careful with any sort of legislation. It's because when the government pressures things change. So.
I super disagree. I think that there are some things that the government can influence, like the types of investments we make or the ways we pay employees, but there are other things that are really, really hard for the government to influence. So for instance, earlier we were talking about birth rates. This is something that a lot of governments around the world have been trying to incentivize. Like, how do we get people to have more kids? That's a really hard thing to do from a point of government policy. There's there's a confluence of like family matters, like economic opportunity, like housing markets. There's a lot of things that have to come together for people to make those decisions. It's not usually a simple button that you can push on the government to like produce more kids, except maybe in the case of like China where you have like literally restrictive child policies or something.
I agree, but we have to ask the question in comparison to what, right?
In comparison to like
has more ability than I think like most institutions in society to influence these things. So that's my point, is the government has like relatively a lot more power in most things.
True.
Yeah, potentially, but I think that there are other institutions that are really, really important that can play like huge factors as well. But I mean, like the government is a big one.
I agree, though. Like educational institutions also have like huge influence, and like media institutions. Like there's so many institutions that have massive influence. So I don't want to say that like the government is the end all be all, but just that it has a special power in its ability to like enforce laws.
I will actually kind of agree with that a little bit in that, and I wanted to bring this up earlier because I know Nick is a big fan of Russia. The Russians give, I think, 2 years maternity leave, and the United States gives no maternity leave. Employers can use it if they want to. I remember just when I was moving from one job to another, a person to sell the health insurance for that job, and this was pretty good health insurance. She was like, "Oh yeah, we had my baby last year. It only cost $6,000." And you talk about declining birth rates. That's what it is. It's this huge environmental and economic pressure on families within first world nations because, in my opinion, we are being bled by the elites for as much labor for as little return on that labor.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think we should have permanent maternity leave. It's called You're a Mom, leave. You're fired.
That's not going to actually get what you want, though. You won't have, if you just kick people out of work without giving them a way to live, you're not going to get the birth rate. You're not going to get those white babies that you really, really want. Because, again, people are going to have children when they are within a situation where they feel that they can have children.
Yeah, I agree. I think the state should incentivize it in other ways. I think they should pay. Like in Hungary, for example, they say you don't have to pay taxes after you have so many kids. And I like what Andrew Yang had to say, frankly, about reconsidering raising kids as work and finding a way to reward that and restructure society to reward that. I agree with you, honestly, about the elites. Maybe we just misunderstand exactly the structure of the elite and what is
you think it's a specific minority. I think it's rich people.
The difference is that Breton thinks the elite are working 24/7, but Nick thinks they take off like Saturday evenings, basically.
That's funny.
That's good, Destiny.
Coming in from Bulletproof Tony says PS is greater than IL. This one from Zayton says, I agree with Destiny. This one from Silent Zero says, Destiny, I did it and would not do it again. There is no amount of money or job title that can compare to the value of my kids.
That's cool. That's good. If you make that decision, you should have a right to. That's awesome. That's fine. I hope that's cool.
This one from Zayton again says, Destiny is the chosen one. He will save America. This one from Bullet Tooth Tony says, y'all see that Ryan Dawson versus Fuentes debate? Did you guys debate, Nick?
Uh-oh.
We did, yeah. We debated, I think, twice. Or maybe just once. I'm not sure.
Ooh, juicy. And 3000 Mover says, thank you, Destiny, for being the voice of reason. You got a lot of fans out there, Destiny. Jake Lesba says, let the right-wingers speak. It's a 2 versus 6, James. Was it really a 2 versus 6? I thought it was relatively... But JJ Cello...
I had trouble tracking who was on what side.
You know who got hammered on? A lot of you, Brendan, you got some pushback from your own team. But you know what? JJ Cello says, Marie, to prove Destiny's point, your mom traveled with 2 kids and a dog. What did she sacrifice to do that? Her retirement? Your college savings? If nothing, then who paid for that travel? The man?
Who's the cat?
So was that a cat?
Oh, Alex.
There's my cat.
Nope, she made a good investment before she had kids, and it paid off.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So workers paid for it.
No. What do you mean?
No, literally,
workers?
she made an investment in a company that extracts surplus value.
Did I say that?
That's the only way you can make money off of an investment. That's how the stock market works.
Maybe she bought a lottery ticket.
The only way to invest money is a stock market?
She could have bought a lottery ticket.
If you invest money in a stock market...
Is that the only investment? I never said stock market.
Well, what?
Why do I have to say? Well, no, why do I have to
There's no other thing you can invest in.
What?
There's a lot of other things you can invest in.
Economic literacy.
Frustrating stardust. This one coming in. Jamie Russell says, Trump Langle 2024. Are you a Trump fan, Brenton?
No,
I biggest.
Hate the man.
No, false.
From hell's heart, I stab at
Did somebody say my name?
Sake,
I said my last frustrating. Out of quick curiosity, who do you guys think is going to be in the 2024 presidential election? Trump and Biden? Do you still think it's going to be Trump and Biden, Stephen?
I do, yeah.
Lord, I hope not.
Michelle Obama.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to
be.
So
somebody, I do think it's going to be Trump.
Or Trump and Kamala, but...
So I do think it's going to be Trump and Biden, but I also, somebody brought up that Pence might run, and it looks like with more and more time, that actually seems like a really good observation. I think that is actually, that Pence is going to run at least in the primary. I don't know if he'll win against Trump, but yeah.
He doesn't have a chance. That'd be a waste of time.
This one from GBO Farms. Israel has a high GDP and a positive birth rate.
Yeah, and that is one anomaly. But listen, it just goes to show, we're trying to understand modernity. I mean, that's really the argument here. And modernity is bound up with Westernism, Westernization, liberalism, technological progress, free markets, and free trade. And sometimes it's difficult to parse what is causing what exactly. But I mean, that's a good example of a country with a strong faith, a strong national identity, a high birth rate, even though they've got, to some extent, Westernization, as well as markets, as well as trade, as well as technological advancement. So, when you find those, those examples that buck the trend, it kind of shows what's really causing what. And there's a few examples like that. So.
You got it. This one from Silent Zero says, Destiny, check the mouse population study. Do you know what they're talking about?
Nope.
This one from Wesley Tart says, hello, really enjoy the channel. Question, is there anything Primetime Alex 99 Stein disagrees with Kent Hovind about? And do they want to debate? I doubt it.
I want to debate Ken Hovind. I want to debate him.
I think you'd agree on everything. Wesley.
No, not everything.
Wesley Tart says, hope springs eternal. James, thanks for that. And Javid Benscombe says, Nick, you believe the earth is flat?
No, I believe it's round. I know that's cringe, but
Sunflower says,
round-earther.
What does the F stand for in TERF, Brenton?
It stands for feminist, but in my opinion, by throwing trans women under the bus, they are fundamentally undermining the claims to feminism, and you can see it in the fact that they are frequently like making common cause with people on the far right. Specifically, like Sargon of Akkad was made when he was taking the TERF position in our debate. So, yeah, I mean, the F does stand for feminist, but I don't think they should be considered feminist. Maybe people will disagree with me, but that's my opinion.
Isn't that kind of like
if I could say, like, I feel like you wouldn't disagree that I'm a feminist, Brenton, but I think Alex was making, so, like, in some senses, a valid point with some of this stuff, and I think it's too easily written off as somebody being a TERF when we're just trying to describe different populations within the category woman, right? So.
Well, I mean, TERF stands for trans exclusionary radical feminist. So I think that is still, you still need to deal with the arguments that are being put forward.
Yeah, they're real TERF, questions.
Therefore, I don't need to talk to you. Like, that's kind of fine.
This is from Father Reynolds says, God, man, children, women, critters. What does that mean? Mr. Crab says, is it okay to have white babies? Is it okay to be white?
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's totally okay to be white.
This one,
it's okay to be white, but that's a white supremacist slogan. They're trying to slip it in.
Well, I am the savior of the white race.
I had no idea that was a... Yeah.
This one from Kyle James. Nick, do you really want any person to procreate? As far as I can tell, there is only one man on this panel. Let's see. They asked who you want to procreate with.
Me?
Justin KG says, why are liberals so focused on the minority if the majority suffers?
Because the majority has more power. I mean, I'm not a liberal. I'm an anarchist. But yeah, obviously you protect the minority because the minority has less power and therefore can be hurt and abused in a much larger way than a majority which has the ability to protect itself with sheer numbers.
This one from Cullivar. Question for Destiny. This can't be true, Destiny. Why is Star Wars The Last Jedi his favorite movie like he told Mahler? You really said that? And why is Rose his favorite Star Wars character? A team reigns supreme.
I mean, it's the best of the Star Wars. What am I supposed to say?
This one from Autism Forbes says, can you ask Jesse from Pod Awful to sing Aerials by System of a Down? Thanks. Sure. Nikki says, James, your beard, thank you for your kind words. Sasha Lord says, Doobie, why do trans imitate Instagram models?
I think there is some truth to the idea that trans people do tend to play into patriarchal stereotypes about women.
Why did Doobie get asked this question?
Yeah. Well, I think it's because I was like defending it, I guess. But yeah, I think there is some truth to that, right? Just like with drag queens, I think there is some truth to them being like basically female blackface.
Yeah. To be fair, also tough. I did not clock you. So until you said something, I was 100% thought you were cis.
You lying bitch.
Why would you ever say something like this?
I clocked it with the voice.
Why would you ever say that? Oh God, why?
All, but generally that trans people, let's say a person who's transing from male to female, this is the word escapes me.
Morbing, that's what we call it in the community now, is morbing from male to female.
Morbing.
So go ahead, yeah.
Is that, thank you, Stephen. Is it true that these people, it's like these people, sorry. What I'm trying to say is it true that like where it's like a sleek and fit woman and then, like the bazongas, like, like huge, like, is that true? Is that what you mean by archetype, Doobie?
Are you confusing trans people with drag queens?
No, I think he's asking like, why do trans women try to go for a certain like female archetype, try to look a certain way? I think I have somewhat controversial opinions on this, but I think that like, if you are someone who's raised as a man, your entire life. And like biologically, we're filled with testosterone. And there's like a high prevalence of autism within the trans community as well. And so like if you are kind of a socially isolated person raised as a man, and you are trying to you want to be a woman, and you're trying to figure out what a woman is, I think that your conception of femininity is very likely going to be based off of a few different sources that are maybe not the most true to life. So like one of these is pornography, another one is anime. And so you see in like the trans community, a lot of people wear like thigh high socks and like little like anime skirts and stuff when they're early on in transition. And they emulate a kind of womanhood that is like very specific to the kind of women that they're aware of within their world. So I think that's why you see like certain trans like aesthetics, like the thigh highs and whatnot, developing is really because of that kind of dynamic. I think that as people morb further into their morbition, they just want to be like attractive, and like they've got an idea of like what is attractive by society standards, and that would be like, I don't know, I guess like the Instagram model look. And so like some people will go after that. That's not really something that is easy to achieve, but like I think that trans people probably pursue that for the same reason as cis women do.
Yeah, I think that question was for me, but I totally agree with everything April or Taj just said. Yeah, I just want
to say, Alex clocked me before he clocked Taftosh. So yeah.
Alex
knows.
No,
I knew April.
Not really clocked.
No, I knew April.
Oh.
Yeah, we
I
go
just
way
didn't know
back.
if you were started. Yeah, we're tight.
You mean like take a jab at? Is that what you mean by clocked someone?
No, just
I don't
realize
know.
that they're trans. But like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
Stardust is, like,
trans.
Radar.
I'm not trans.
But you are a TERF, though, right? Stardust? You're a
I'm not a
trans radical
I'm not a
feminist?
TERF. I'm not a TERF.
Lame.
This one
I did not clock Doobie as black. That's the one that evaded me because he doesn't sound black.
I'm still.
I think that was a fake reveal.
You know what? I didn't clock Nick as literally an old guy from 30 years ago. I didn't.
Really, because I clocked that immediately. I think he has Benjamin Button disease.
Well, you know what? He does have like the mannerisms of an old man, you know, sometimes.
What?
So. It's not a bad thing. It's just a thing, you know, so.
I have a theory.
It's kind of funny.
My theory is that Nick is an addict. And he's not an addict necessarily of drugs, but I've worked in radio for years and years. When you say radical, very, I guess, things that you're not supposed to say, you get a shot of dopamine to the brain. And a lot of people, when they get pulled into like a radical hole, it's because they are self-medicating in some way. They're chasing that next hit of dopamine.
Do you think that's why you're an anarcho-communist?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm an anarcho-communist for a number of reasons. But I will say that I did recognize it in myself when I was working in radio, and it's one of the reasons I stepped out.
I'm not a shock jock, though. I mean, I make jokes.
And to be fair to Nick, like I think most people wouldn't assume that I'm black. Right? I think that's totally a fair.
I would say Nick's biggest problem is he wakes up at 8 p.m. and that's morning for him.
That's true. That's degenerate. Not good.
Right.
Nick. Not good, Nick.
I'm basically
the
vampire.
worst
I'll throw Nick a bone there.
Curtis Fowler says China's population will be half of what it is, or 50% of currently living folks in China will die by 2050. I can't find a projection for the first one.
It's between 2050 and 2100, or like 2100. So I think that's usually where the estimates range. And like you have to be like a little bit. Obviously, like predicting the future is always difficult, but like by current trends, or if you guess that trends are going to accelerate or decelerate, you'll get different predictions.
Gotcha. GBO Farm says, why does Doobie continually talk about man-boy sex? You don't talk about
I find it fascinating for a ton of reasons that I'd love to talk to you about later.
That is gay.
It is. Let's see. Austin. It is interesting. This one from Austin. Autism Forums. Please ask Jesse to sing anything by System of a Down. I have autism. Okay. Mark Lozano says, is anyone going to mention how women are hypergamous? Also,
that's not true.
to Nick, keep being awesome, champ. We love you.
Let's go.
Are women hypergamous, gang?
No.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not. Like, first off, like hypergamy isn't a thing in humans. But then second of all, what you're trying to say is women are constantly trying to date and marry up. I mean, everyone is trying to get the best partner that they can, that they vibe with the best. Women are under added economic pressure to find someone who they don't just like, but can also provide for them. I mean, you mentioned Taft, the sort of the MRS degree. I mean, there's specific economic reasons why they would do that. I think what's happening is that some people who feel like they can't get a woman.
I can't. I'm going to be arguing with every single thing everybody says if I step in anywhere here.
Women are like 51% of the world at the moment. So like, there's actually more women than men.
I don't know what that has to do with anything.
It means there's enough partners for every single man.
Yeah, but that's not how that plays out. Like, we know that sex is decreasing for like millennials, but that's not true for like the most attractive, like most competent guys. They're having way more sex, and so like the slack needs to exist somewhere.
Where are you getting that information?
From OkCupid data specifically. They did like a big study.
If I recall correctly, I remember seeing a study just a little while back that it was like a few years behind the male virginity study, but essentially virginity it showed in a study that virginity was on the rise for women too. I would have to look into it again, maybe not at the same extent that it is for men, but it was showing that virginity was rising for women as well.
Yeah, millennials are having, or like the youngest generation is having way less sex, and it is disproportionately, that figure is contributed to by men, and like a very specific group of men, which is like men who are like on the bottom half of like looks, attractiveness, competence, and whatnot. But like, it is in general.
Why say so many words when you could just say gripers? Sorry.
Yeah,
just Nick type men.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. Nick, have you seen that meme where they put you on your face on Flanders when or not Flanders? Who's the guy who's gay in The Simpsons and likes Mr. Burns? Which one is that guy?
But we must move on.
Yeah. He's got like women dancing in like bikini tops and bottoms, and he's cringing away from them. They stuck your head in that. Have you seen that one?
No, but that was
next
funny.
Up. Alphabet says to everyone, do you think the cost of living spaces, and typical work arrangements in a society affect the fertility of that society?
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, but I think maybe people overestimate that.
This one coming in, Rachel Wilson says, buy my book on how feminism comes out of the occult, and Alex is a national treasure. It's Rachel Wilson.
I appreciate that.
Jesus
Thank you.
Christ.
Hey, Brent, it's a fact. I am, so deal with it.
Feminism comes out of the occult. Where do you find
it?
It
is what it is. I'm a national treasure.
This one from Leslie Clemens says, for Nick, should women be blamed for being raped or sex trafficked?
What? No. No, I don't think so.
This one from Robin says, what are the great female empires of history? If there are none due to males keeping them from greatness, isn't that proof of their... Let's see.
It's a great
point.
What
does Toto mean? Like T-O-T-O. If their inability to do so, I don't know. So what are the great female empires of history, Brenton?
The great female empires of history?
Yes.
I don't think there are any female empires, but again, like the only empires that we've had, again, rose about 6,000 years ago, and except for like the Mongols, they were all single godded, like it was either Christianity or Judaism or Islam. There's something about that particular type of religion that emphasizes like male leadership and also emphasizes empire and conquest. So yeah, there probably weren't any female empires that we have record of, but again, that's just because the only cultures that do empire also tend to be heavily patriarchal.
Oh,
well, hey,
wrong.
I'm
gonna outflank Nick on the right here. The real based answer actually is women are currently presiding over the largest empire in all of human history. The United States has become an empire ran by women. That's why it's being driven into the ground. Women and feminine energy are infecting men all over the United States. They're ruining the schools. They're ruining the institutions. Like that's what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Well, why can't women get drafted?
51% of the world's population is women. It's not enough. We need to up those numbers.
Yeah, but why can't women get drafted if the world's ruled by women?
Because no one passed a law that says women have to get drafted. I would prefer no one be drafted.
Women are running things from behind the scenes. They don't want to get drafted. They want men to die so they continue to have control.
Why can men get drafted and women can't? Wouldn't that say there's a war on men, that we have to be forced to fight in a war?
No, it says that the military thought that it could do
men are stronger and better. Yeah, exactly.
No, it's going to expand faster.
Well, I mean,
by drafting men, but there hasn't been a draft since Vietnam. So that,
hey, World War III with Ukraine, we just gave them another $500 million. You got Nancy Pelosi and her big titties are all in Taiwan. You never know, dude.
I would also say that if America's a female empire, then that would be a credit to me, because America got us ass kicked by the Taliban. So it was literally literate guys in rags beat the shit out of women with thermal and UAV and freaking stealth bombers.
Hang on.
A bunch of guys with Toyota Tundras.
We got Taliban every day. If it's women with drones versus boys in the Taliban, I got Taliban all day. Money's on the Taliban.
Nick, no empire has ever beaten Afghanistan in the long run. Not Alexander the Great, not the Soviets, not the Americans. You cannot control
I've never heard this before. Afghanistan's a graveyard of empires? I've never heard that before.
So then why are you saying stupid shit if you assume that you did see it before?
And they got their ass kicked by the Viet Cong, and we got our ass kicked by Iraq, and we get our ass kicked all the time by the boys, by ISIS.
Perhaps
not that I support ISIS. ISIS
that
created
war
by
is
Israel.
actually really hard, and empires have difficulty against this more or less new tactic of permanent.
Because we're not grasping the nettle. Okay.
This one coming in from Robin says, "What are the great female empires?"
You just asked that.
Way to go, Robin. Dumbass.
Defke says, please settle the debate. Are you natural? Mall natural, only creatine. John Coyne says, Democrats changed for the definition of what a recession is for Brandon. Is this true?
Wow. Yeah, actually true. I heard that one of the reasons why Biden's been so fucking slippery lately is because he's been up late every night trying to edit that Wikipedia page. Him and Kamala, I think, are in the Oval Office on their MacBooks. They keep trying to change the definition. It's not working. We caught him.
This one from goes to Captain Titus Frost says, Revolutionary War has fought to free this country from the very same banking cartel that runs the central bank.
Oh, no.
Never mind that one. Let's see. Not a Fed.
That's legit.
Thanks for your super sticker. And Fish Died, LOL, says, can Destiny do the economics rap again? Do you have a rap, Steven?
No.
This one from...
Yes, do it. Do you not have it? Economics rock. Economics can suck on my cock. Economics are really gay. Economics every freaking day. Inflation station. Joe Biden is retarded. When I go to the club, I still get carded. I'm a pimp on a blimp. Inflation can suck my dick.
All right. You're like someone transplanted the brain of like a middle schooler into a semi-adult body.
What are you talking about? This dude's a fucking genius. How dare you, Brenton?
Thank you, Stardust. Thank you. Yes.
You know what the real topic should have been? I don't know. Did anybody chastise Alex for his disgusting treatment of AOC earlier? That ever happened?
Shut up, dude. That's my girlfriend, Steve. So listen, you need to shut your trap. That's how we make love. And that's how I know my sexual energy.
Actually,
yes, dude, and she liked it. And
unironic, degenerate fucking behavior. Super disgusting. I'm surprised you guys didn't go over
God, but just because you're gay and you have an open relationship with your wife, you let her get banged by other dudes. See, that's just like AOC, Riley. I know, but see,
here's the thing.
Funny. Steven, you let other dudes bang your girl, so you're calling me a sexual degenerate while guys jizzing on your wife.
I'm calling you a sexual degenerate because you're actually unironically harassing. You're actually sexually harassing a woman at work. Actually sexually harassing a woman at work. Actual degenerate, yeah.
Yeah, he's so alpha that he's not intimidated by other men's jizz, okay? Men's jizz don't faze him because he's so alpha.
Yeah, you're so alpha. Other guys can blow their load on your girlfriend.
Absolutely. Listen, there might be 100 guys.
Awesome.
There might be 100 BBCs blowing their load right now, but I'm still not out there sexually harassing women. How crazy is that, huh?
Oh, really? That's better. Oh, my God. Come on,
Alex, two-croquet fallacy. Look it up.
Listen, Strive.
Dudes blow their loads in his wife or his
two-croquet fallacy. Look it up.
They said, let Destiny finish his point on the economy. Way too many dumb points that cannot be left to rest. I think they were.
I think the point I was just trying to make is that it's hard to tell if we're actually in a recession. It's a really hard thing to measure. People will focus on certain figures on like the CPI or whatever, or people will look at like mortgage rates, or people will look at like 2 quarters of GDP growth. But there's also like really weird things happening right now too. Like unemployment is very low. We don't have like a huge unemployment crisis right now. Wages are growing really quickly in certain sectors that are outpacing inflation, even depending on the sector you're talking about. So it's a very weird economic time we're in, and the idea that like everything is shit just because gas prices are high is kind of silly, and it's not tracking on to the lived experiences of a lot of Americans at the moment.
Yeah, but the employment
Shopify just got rid of 10% of its workforce.
Who?
It's like Shopify.
No, who the fuck asked? Why the fuck would I care about what one company like offload something?
That's not one company. That's just you're seeing it happening.
No, you're not. What's the unemployment? Then you look at
you just happen to have a shop through Shopify. Is that why you're paying attention to that?
No, you just look at the unemployment rate.
Because like I see everyone freaking out on TikTok.
Okay. Why not just look?
Just in the news.
So that's because they have a Shopify.
Sure. Just all right, that makes sense. Look at the unemployment rates. Right, they're very, 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 very low. The idea that like we're in like a traditional recession where everybody's getting fucked and like everything is slowing down is just not true. It's a very weird time to live in economically.
Not everybody's getting fucked, just your girlfriend, Steven.
Nice.
It's because 1 million people are dead. Like that's why we're having this, in my opinion.
There's a labor shortage. People dropped out of the labor force. That's why wages are rising. That's why unemployment's low.
Dandy says people who subscribe to moral relativism will never agree with people who believe in objective good and evil. Thoughts? Jesus Christ is King, Revelation 2:9.
There is absolutely no such thing as objective good and evil. And in fact, I wanted to get to this because what I saw actually out of Nick earlier on was he was attempting to derive an ought from an is, which we have known is physically impossible since David Hume. Like you can describe the world as things ought, or as things are, but you cannot say that these are this way, therefore it ought to be this way, especially not within the confines of morality.
Well, yeah, because you don't believe in God. Okay, I don't believe in David Hume.
You didn't ask.
God.
I'm a Buddhist, dude. So I do.
Oh my gosh, this is better and better.
I don't see you. You want to talk with me about Buddhism? We can do it.
I don't. I'm not interested in that.
Well, that's all right, because I used to be a Catholic, and I can know that you actually are a heretic.
Oh, really?
You were like the definition of a heretic.
Oh, why
this one coming in. Samir says, for equality and 50-50, but usually once granted, the ex-underdog starts chipping at your 50%. Day 1, don't make me say God in the Pledge of Allegiance. Day 2, I'm offended that you say God.
Wow, base.
What?
Is it true that the left is clamping down more and more on theists or religious folks?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
What
In what ways?
Why? Why do you guys think that?
I thought. Wait, hold on. I haven't been following. Didn't they just win a case in the Supreme Court about like getting to pray in public schools or some shit? I thought that.
Yes,
yeah, I know, but why was it illegal before that? Yeah, why did they
separation of church and state?
Oh,
yeah. Do you think that was?
You got?
Well, I would just like to know, like, in what ways they're clamping down on religious people.
A guy tried to pray during a football game and he got fired from his job. That's how.
And he,
that's not.
And he took it to court and he won the case.
He had to go all the way to. So yeah, I know. So that shows you there's a war on it. He had to fight in order to get that right to do it.
He probably planned that specifically.
The school. No, he didn't plan it.
Okay. The planning is too much.
Go get your tinfoil hat.
Your name is literally Conspiracy Cast.
I'm on the grind all the time. I know, but I'm just saying. Come on, you know he didn't. But
so to be clear, so like, is there some other thing? Because I think even if you were to try to make that argument, pointing to one dude getting fired because he prayed in the middle of like a school event is not enough to justify like a clamping down.
Well, they took out under God from the Pledge of Allegiance, so there you go.
Yeah. Wait, did they really?
Democrats are there are a lot of very religious Democrats. So I mean, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Wait, did they actually take out under God from the Pledge of Allegiance? Did I miss this?
Yes.
No, they didn't. Yes. But fun
yes,
fact.
They did.
The Pledge of Allegiance was created by a socialist.
Oh, well, and then also didn't they add that under God part in 1952? I hadn't heard anything about them taking it out.
I don't know if it was in the pledge, but they did add the under God to the money in 1952.
Eisenhower added under God. Yeah.
What in what? Yeah. Okay.
Occupy Democrats became a human being, walked among us. That's
oh, shit, I just looked it up to verify that I wasn't talking out my ass. You're pretty close.
Liberal
1954, Eisenhower added it to the pledge.
This one coming in from Flop Tina says Stardust described Nick perfectly. Ask about his. Let's see. Also glad to see Marie and Alex are here. Next up, Nicholas Federico says howdy from Texas. war on humanity, in particular men. Both men and women, though. Space is 100% fake. Who will be POTUS in 2024? God bless. Nick means victory, but Alex wins.
Wait, Alex, do you think space is fake?
I don't know if it's exactly how they describe it, because I don't think you can look through a telescope at something, thousands of light years away.
If there's a war on men, there's not enough of a war on men. We need more.
Wait, do you think glasses are real? Alex?
What?
Eyeglasses?
Yeah, does that work?
Yeah, I think your wife has to wear them when guys are jizzing on her face.
Nice.
So
do you think microscopes are like real? Like when your girlfriend's trying to find your dick, does that work? Or like if microscopes and glasses work?
Why don't you just ask your wife if my dick works?
Do you want me to ask my wife if she needs to use a microscope to find your dick? Wait, can I ask?
I think he called me. He said that I'm a sexual harasser. Yet he literally lets dudes jizz on his wife.
You keep talking about cum on people's faces. It sounds like you want cum on your face, bro.
No, but you let it have it on your girlfriend. I think that's disgusting.
I'm just curious if you think that
you were kind of pinging my gaydar when I first met you.
If you think that glasses are real, I'm just curious why you can't think telescopes are real. Isn't it kind of like the same concept?
No, I think telescopes are real. I just don't think, looking at a telescope, you can tell everything about a planet or something like that. So I don't think they know everything about other planets.
Anonymous 1 says, James, can you set up a Vosh versus Nick debate? I don't know. Destiny, what do you think? Do you think your buddy Vosh should go for it?
Vosh doesn't debate right-wingers anymore.
This one from
I would be all for it, 100%.
Yeah, Vosh is afraid of Nick, unironically.
Says Nick is handsome and smart. This one from Mr. Crab says, if all it takes is to, quote, identify as a woman and be accepted as a woman, is Rachel Dolezal a black woman because she identifies and is accepted as a black woman?
No, because race is not a social role. Race is like a technology employed.
Wait, isn't race what people look like? Isn't race kind of... Never mind.
Didn't you say earlier that woman is a social role and it's an idea? Yeah. So what's if you're saying that race is not that?
I think that race is more tangible than.
Well, no, I don't think it's more
tangible. So I would say gender is more. I would say gender is more. Not gender. Sex is more tangible than race.
Absolutely.
Yeah, significantly more tangible. I mean, the reason we have the races that we have right now is it was convenient to the Elizabethans. Like, race is used by the state as a means of policing groups under its power that it considers to be unruly.
So, Brenton, do you think it'd be better if people could just identify into race? Because then it wouldn't be policed by the state, right?
No,
this is a tool of the state to suppress the masses. Why wouldn't we reject it?
Like people don't identify. Like if a
you don't think that people identify as different races.
If a judge or a cop is going to treat someone worse because of their race, if it's
like Doobie over here.
It has nothing to do with them identifying as one race or the other.
So for somebody to
go back to my original question.
By the way, Nick is the dude who calls 911.
Do you think the world would be better if it was a world where people could identify into race without having it projected onto them by a cop or whatever? Do you think that'd be a better world?
Without it being projected onto them?
Where people just identify and that's it.
I think you're defining race out of relevant existence. It is the projecting onto them by sovereign power that.
But you think it would be a better world, right? Where Rachel Dolezal can identify as a black woman and be a black woman, right?
So in the event that we had a world where black people were not targeted by the state, but were somehow still a race, sure, whatever, I don't care.
Wait, hold on. Can I? Because it seems like you're saying that if there were a black person in the United States, if there were a black person in the United States who for some reason hadn't interacted with systemic oppression, hadn't dealt with racist cops, maybe wasn't selling drugs, so didn't interact with like a racist judge, right? If this person would be less black than other black people,
they'd be a white presenting black.
I mean, in like the sense that like,
is there something like inherent about being black that requires you to like be a criminal or like to interact with police? Like, what do you?
It's how the state perceives you.
Okay, so answer the question then. So would they be less black than a black person who had gone through all those things?
No.
Why not?
Because it would be pure luck that they didn't.
What?
If I could, I think you guys are already on this like line, but I have argued this before just for fun. But I think you guys are pretty much at this point already. But when somebody transitions to being a woman, the way that I've heard it explained is that when that women, like, because as soon as you start presenting as a woman, you inherit all of the oppression that women get in society, whereas you can't really do the same thing with race. You can't really like transition into a race. I don't know how accurate that is, but I thought
there's also biological differences between trans women.
I thought we were going somewhere different. Oh my God.
No, good God, no.
Do you think there are biological differences in the races?
Good catch, Steve.
No, there are no biological differences whatsoever.
Okay, so evolution
not a single.
Yeah, there are.
Like pigment in the skin. Is not a biological difference.
That doesn't have anything to do with race.
Based tranny in a bag of hat.
The evolution
Wait, what the fuck are you saying, dude? You're saying pigment in the skin has nothing to do with race?
It is how someone is perceived based upon but it's like putting the cart before the horse.
But the evolution that led to the differences in skin pigmentation, are you saying that evolution stopped at the skin? It didn't go any deeper than that?
Let's go.
That's not evolution, so no. You like
what? Why do you think?
Why do black people have sickle cell anemia more than white people?
Hold on, wait. Why do white people have white skin?
Oh my God. Okay, this is like an entire debate here.
It's not that complicated.
It's only black people who come from a very specific part of Africa that have.
Why do you think there are differences
anemia.
in skin tone?
Okay, well, why don't white people have it then?
Why do you think there are differences in skin tone, like pigmentation, melanin, etc.? Like, why do you think there are differences?
I mean, those are inherited.
It's because hell burned us because we sin more.
Mm-hmm. What?
So
where did this come from?
Where did what come from?
Oh God, I'm sorry. You're going to
say? Are you saying like where did it come from?
The reason why you can't transition races is because it's inconvenient to the progressive narrative. Okay.
Yes.
That's
no. Wrong. Okay, hold on. Jesus fucking Christ. Yes. The reason why is because you don't have your brain doesn't have a fucking race. You don't have an internal experience of race. Right?
Thank you.
Exactly.
That's what I was going to go to.
But
okay,
you do.
But that's why progressives would argue that you should, theoretically, be able to transition races.
No, you can't transition race. That doesn't make sense. No, hold on. That'd be like transitioning ages. It doesn't make any sense to transition
social
race.
roles. It's social roles.
No, it's not fucking social roles. What are you talking about?
That's what he's arguing.
I don't deal with. He's not.
That's what he's saying right now.
Wait, that's who's saying? Brenton is not a progressive. He's an anarcho whateverist.
Yeah. Okay, anarcho is true. Whatever.
As a progressive on the panel, that is not my view. Okay, you cannot be transracial, and there's a fundamental difference between the internal experience of race, which doesn't exist, versus the internal experience of sex, which I think does exist.
Yeah. Which is what I was trying to say when I said there are biological differences. Like they've done brain scans of trans people, and like the brain is closer to the gender that they identify with.
Brenton, you don't believe this. You don't believe that you need to like prove that you have a certain brain to transition. Like you're not.
No, why would I?
No, exactly. This is my point, right? Because you believe that people should have the right to change whatever they want about their gender presentation, to take whatever hormones they are, and to like be accepted into society as that, regardless of whatever's going on in their brain. Like that is the progressive position, as far as I'm aware, is that you should have the freedom to do that, right? And so I think it would be
that's like I'm an anarchist. Literally, everyone should have the freedom to do everything for the most part.
Yeah. So I think like the consistent thing to say would be that like it shouldn't matter what is in your brain, but you should be able to like
I'm not saying
your skin color, do whatever you want as long and be like accepted into society.
I'm not saying that it matters. Look, I'm not saying that it matters like what's in your brain. What I'm doing right there is I'm drawing a disanalogy to prove that Rachel Dolezal is not analogous to a trans person's experience. Now you can disagree with me on that, but that's specifically pointing to the brain as a relevant difference.
Yeah, so I can say that because I'm a trans medicalist, okay? I think there is like a relevant biological difference here. And that's that like trans people have like dysphoria, like a medical condition, which is why they're transitioning. And I don't think that exists for like transracial people. I think it's just like attention grabbing histrionics. Ooh. So like I think that's the difference.
We're call her a turf. She's a turf. Call her a turf. Is she a turf?
Hey, Doobie's not black. That was a fake out. He's trolling us. You're not black. I knew it.
Yeah, this one coming in. You look exactly how I thought you
couldn't resist.
Didymus says, Nick, if the America became a Catholic theocracy, it would no longer be America.
No, that's not true. That's not true because Catholicism is more Christian than Protestantism. So people go, "Oh, America's a Protestant nation." It's like, okay, well, England was a Catholic nation, and
wait, hang on though.
The Church is the mother of all the nations.
Well, why not just go back to England then?
What?
Why not just go back to England then?
Because we're in America.
Wait, hold on. I want to hear the theological argument. I'm curious. You say the Catholic Church is the birthplace of all of Christian religion, right? Because everybody broke off from the Catholic Church because they gave up on us, okay? They're losers. But could you not argue that the Catholic Church is kind of like a break off of Judaism? That Christianity came from Judaism and that's kind of like a betrayal of... No?
No, because rabbinical Judaism happened after the death of Christ. The Jews of the Old Testament, their Messiah came. His name was Jesus.
Yeah, but what about the ones that don't believe that? The ones that don't believe that he's the Messiah. He's just another prophet. Aren't you like breaking off from them like Protestants broke off from the Catholic Church?
No, because Christianity fulfilled that. It's a continuation.
You're begging the question. They didn't believe that it fulfilled that, of course, right? Just like you don't believe that Muhammad is the prophet of fucking Allah or whatever, right?
And they're objectively wrong. And then they went and they wrote down their oral tradition in the 3rd and 5th century in Babylon and in Jerusalem, and it's called the Talmud. And they worship. In the Talmud it says that the rabbis correct God. That's a different religion. So if anything, rabbinical Judaism is a deviation because the fulfillment of the Old Testament is the New Testament, and objectively, rabbinical Judaism is a deviation from that.
Oh well,
all I'm saying is that if you like Catholicism so much, Nick, maybe you should go back to England or wherever you came from. So
okay,
it would probably be Germany.
You should go back to like Pakistan
Light of the Twin
Lamps, India.
Light of the Twin Lamps says to Nick and Doobie and anyone who wants to add their opinion, thoughts on the FBI no longer collecting race data in regards to crime.
Is that true?
I'm not aware of that happening.
So for Nick and Doobie in particular, they asked.
I just Googled news stories. I don't see any of that. Is that? I've never.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, sorry, I was draining my penis. I don't know if that's true. If it were true, it's really stupid. I don't think that they should do that.
But they do that in other countries.
Yeah,
like in Germany, they stopped doing that with migrants, and they do this all the time because reality is undeniable.
Well, or they know what happens when racism gets out of control in Germany.
Yeah, crime stops.
Well, I think if there are specific communities that are having issues with crime, we need to be able to target those communities to like fix those problems, right?
That's true.
Sure.
That's true. Like that's not Germany targeted those communities, right?
Oh, God.
He's talking about.
This one from appreciate your question. Samir says maybe Ben Shapiro will run. He's a loyal following. Maybe. Sausage Lord says Nick, thanks for asexual representation on the panel. Brian Theory says Nick and Destiny is my favorite bromance. When is the podcast? Jake says
soon. We're working on it.
Jake says Nick, if you had to marry Stardust, let's see. All right, that's weird. Bushy says Doobie.
Whoa, let's.
I can't.
Okay, all right.
This one says Bushy Doobie. Oh, that's Nikki says Jane. Appreciate it.
Wait, was it meant to be an insult? If it was, I want to hear it. It'd be...
No, it's not an insult. It's just they're asking why you're black. I don't get it. I think they're trying to like trigger people or something. I don't know. Is that what they say?
I do identify as a black man. It's
trying to trigger people
sometimes.
But Nikki, thanks for your kind words, says, but why is it so hard to admit that men and women are different?
I don't think anybody doesn't admit that men and women are different.
Are you sure nobody does?
Yeah, I'm certain men and women are different.
Oh, okay. Prison Palace says, what does Nick think of Deborah's role in the Bible?
I don't know.
This one from Yo says, okay, I think this is sincere, so they're not trying to trigger you, Taff. They says, was April's decision to transition influenced by porn brain poisoning from a young age? Maybe they are trying to trigger you.
Yeah, no way is that a trigger thing.
I was actually like somewhat late to the party when it came to like, I don't know, sexual awakening and masturbation. So probably not in my case, but who knows?
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Jessica Puzzle says Marie's mom's investment was having a lot of money. Also, Stardust wouldn't say it, but let's see. Tell Taff I would 100% lesbian her up. Okay, thanks.
I just felt like it was inappropriate for me to say it right now, Taff. I would have called you after.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this one from Ryan Rockwell says, as the only known virgin on the panel, shouldn't Nick have more to say on the topic? Sex in millennial demos. What's his take on why he gets no females?
Well, as I said, I am an asexual incel. So it's a little bit different for me. I'm in sort of the category of eccentric genius, asexual, incel. But I talked about it. The problem is feminism. The problem is fertility rates declining all across the board because women are nasty these days. That's not my situation. I'm an incel. But as far as other people, women are not cool. Okay?
Hold on, can you wait? Why do you keep calling yourself an incel? Shouldn't you be a volcel? Wouldn't that be a better term?
I am an incel.
So you want women, but you can't get them.
I'm an internet celebrity and an involuntary celibate. Also, I am asexual.
Wait, hold on,
so
Nick,
I don't want to have sex
let's
with
be real.
anyone.
There are plenty of women out there who'd suck your pee for you, right?
I don't think that's true. I'm dark. I'm like Ryan Gosling. I'm like.
There are women on my server. There are women on my server who simp over you and talk about how hot you are.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I'm pretty
sure. Change your whole life now.
Didn't you have like a whole thing with somebody who like sent you a super chat or something, and they were hitting on you, and then you did a whole rant about it?
Well, she was crazy.
Nick, the last time you were on my server, you almost got it deleted, but I love you, and I want to change your life. Okay, so if you visit us, I'll 100% set you up with an e-girl. Okay,
we'll
get your dick sucked. We'll fly her out for you. It'll be a whole thing.
That's a mortal sin. Also, I am asexual, and I am an incel. And the thing is, okay, women are obese, okay, and they're rude.
So you have a small dick.
They're not all obese.
I have a big dick, actually, and a big pair of balls. Not that it's anybody's business.
All right, let's move on to the next one. First name,
Stardust business as well.
Alex, did it look as big in person as it does on TV? What are they talking about, Alex?
On TV, my dick. It's a nice dick. I mean,
all right, let's do the next one. Jake Lesba says, I noticed that. Let's see. I noticed that Marie disagrees with Nick on the ultimate role of women. Marie, will you have a dialogue or debate with Nick on this topic?
I don't even know if we really even got into that conversation. I'm not sure if we totally disagree or not.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and also you're not even Christian, so I don't know what's going on with that.
I'm just like, I am, but I'm like not practicing, so I think it's wrong to say you are something if you don't go to church and do all that.
Can we take a moment to shit on all these, Nick, join me here for a moment. Can we take a minute to shit on all these non-denominational Christians, these quote-unquote spiritual people that don't go to church, don't have a real relationship with God, don't have a real commitment to any particular sect? What are you? You might as well be crystal worshipers at that point. I think that's degenerate.
That's why I said I don't want to like say I am anything, because it's like I think if you don't have a denomination and all this stuff, it's kind of like you're LARPing at that point.
True.
I agree.
So like
so based on this point.
Marie, do you own any crystals or like frankincense? Like,
no.
No. No progress, says Alex 1. George Nada says Nick's thoughts about Sam C. Guzzler. Okay, just Nick's thoughts about Sam Cedar claiming to have emails to quote out Nick. Is this true? Did Destiny's buddy Sam say that he has those emails?
Yeah, I've heard that, and I think he said that one other time. But, as always with these things, people say that. And
challenge him to release the tapes. Where are they?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I mean, he said it a few times. I'd be very curious to see what
There's the call out. There it is. Nick Fuentes challenging Sam Cedar. It's like Kira and fucking Elle on Death Note right now on live TV, challenging him to release the tapes. Let's see if he does it.
Well, yeah, and there was that thing a few weeks ago on, Crazy Days and Nights, where they're like, oh, someone's selling a gay sex tape of Nick for $100,000. Oh boy, this America First is over, and then nothing ever materializes. Yeah, I'd be very curious to see what that's all about, because that's been claimed for a little while.
True.
This one from Robin says, purpose of women is procreation. The war is denying this.
My God. So nothing has an inherent purpose. Women do reproduce, but that's not a purpose. Nature doesn't have a mind to give something a purpose. Like it's him projecting that purpose onto the process of reproduction.
Why does my cat yell at me because she's not pregnant? Is it not her purpose to get impregnated and have babies?
Correct.
And is it not women? Yes, it is. It is literally her purpose of living is to give life.
Is the purpose of a river to flow? No, it doesn't have a purpose. It's just happening. Purpose is something that people imbue objects and pieces of reality with mentally. We're the ones that create purpose.
Does your dick have a purpose?
No. Well,
that's a personal question.
This one from...
No, it doesn't. Hold on.
Yeah. This one from Sam Mahagna says, Brenton is what I visualize when I think of a Redditor. Brenton, is this an insult?
I don't know. I don't go on Reddit, so I have no idea.
It is an insult, for clarification.
Okay, thank you.
At least they didn't call you a Discord mod, so, you know.
This one from Sausage Lord says, Stardust, why do you allow Brenton to appropriate Indian Buddhism while he also tries to allow trans women into biological women's spaces?
Wait, okay, so I'm not a Buddhist. So, you know, it's not my place to be, you know, telling him, you know, gatekeeping or whatever. If that's what you are, that's what you are. And yeah, just leave me away from it. Leave me, you know.
I'll be sure not to shakabuku you. So like, yeah, this is ridiculous because Buddhism is essentially, like in a lot of ways, at least how it started out.
Are you going to explain an Eastern religion to me that originated?
Not to you. I'm explaining it to the guy that thinks that there should be racial caps.
I'm just joking.
Wait, Stardust, where the fuck are you even from?
I'm of Indian origin. So.
Okay, but what state were you born in? Can I pronounce it?
I was. Wait, what?
Can I pronounce? You're proud. I thought you're an American, aren't you?
I am an American. I'm an American first.
Are people of Indian descent imbued with the knowledge of Buddhism? Okay, calm down with the racial essentialism. Nick, all right? You're trying to appeal to Nick here, okay? You're emboldening his racist views, all right?
Just right.
How am I emboldening anything? Oh my God.
But just so, like, Buddhism, especially like Theravada Buddhism, is essentially Hinduism stripped for export. The purpose of it was to go beyond India.
You know how this is giving me PTSD from like college. Whenever you get like all the Hindu, all the white Hindus and all the white Buddhists who come onto the college campus, and then they would set up.
Are you talking about Hare Krishnas?
Yeah, and they would set up their thing, and then they would and then you'd go, you know, all the Indian kids, we'd be like, oh yeah, you know, like free food, whatever. So we'd go there and we get free food, but then inevitably you get you know, somebody explains Hinduism to you while you're trying to just get free food. Yeah,
because it's a Hare Krishnas. Those are a cult.
Yeah, it's usually a white person who's explaining it to you.
Yes, it's a cult that recruits white people in America.
Yeah.
Based.
This one coming in.
Hey, that's like me.
Yeah, true.
Oddly enough, yeah, I think that's the most honest you've been.
Robin says, Brent, don't do philosophy. There are refutations for the you can't derive an is from an ought argument from Hume.
There are like attempts at refuting it. I'm not aware of any, but you know, maybe I read the wrong books. So
this one from Sam Mahagna says, Nick, when and how did the Destiny Best Friends Forever arc happen?
I don't know. You know, he had this sort of great awakening. The last time we had talked before this blossoming friendship, you know, he was just browbeating me and saying, you hate everyone and you want to kill everyone. You want to kill all black people. It was on the Dick Masterson show. And I'm like, no, Destiny, like I didn't know you're chill like that. Like, I'm just a chill guy. Okay. I'm a Christian. I'm a reactionary. And I don't know. Maybe he'd have to say, because I've always been a fan. Okay, I've always been a fan of the StarCraft gameplay, and I've always thought that he's sort of a secret Groiper, crouching Pepe, hidden Groiper sort of action going on.
I think the actual story is that, like, I didn't realize, but me and Nick just have so much in common. We're Hispanic, autistic, and I'm going to be honest, I don't really believe in dinosaurs either. Okay, so you know when you're hitting all three of those points, what am I supposed to do? You know.
But Destiny, isn't your son based now? Isn't he like conservative?
Yeah, you are obsessed with making cum jokes about my family, so I'm a little bit scared to talk about my 11-year-old.
I didnn't make a cum joke about your son. I'm just saying, isn't he? I think he's teaching you. He's converting you. He's converting.
Yeah. Hey, Alex,
I don't think he posts his
Alex, I was conservative, like straight up until the end of college. Like I was like, you know, young GOP, all for Iraq, under Bush. In college, I was a right libertarian. Getting out into the real world is what made me an anarchist.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Appreciate it. Fish Monkey says, to say there is no objective truth is a self-contradiction. You are making a universal claim by saying, quote, unquote, there is no truth. The fact of the matter is, there is no facts.
You just made a claim as a universal claim as well. All universal claims, technically, you can say that they're not true because, like, nothing is perfect. So obviously, You could argue, I guess, that there's some objective morals out there, but you would have to identify them, find them, and bring them to me so that I could examine them and make sure, oh yes, indeed, this is objective morals.
This one from Samir says, Alex, you are smart. Arguing degrades you. Stop. Incapacitating strike says, Brendan, do you huff paint?
Wait, I gotta ask an important question. Does anybody think that Alex Stein could be like that Better Call, like Saul's guy's son? Am I the only one that sees this?
Probably,
Didn't you work at like a car lot or something, Alex?
I got a dealer's license. Yeah, I buy and sell cars. Yeah, what? Come on, they're a commodity. I'm a pimp on a blimp, dog.
I can see why. I can see why you did that. You definitely are a good
I could sell. You know what I'm saying? I could sell, underwear to ass. I could sell ice to an Eskimo. I'm a pimp on a blimp. Yeah, I mean, I can actually sell. I didn't just sit on a stream. I actually had to go out in 110 degree heat and sell cars in Texas. Yeah, I've actually had to grind it out, unlike a lot of people on the internet.
I don't think.
Yeah, dude, what have you ever done? Have you ever sold anything in your life? Probably not. Exactly. You've never had a real job. What did you sell? What did you sell?
I agree with you.
Oh yeah.
Are you talking to me or?
I want to tell you. Okay, I actually sell insurance. Okay, that's my job. I'm an insurance person.
And so, I don't believe that. It's a big. You couldn't sell. Yeah, you couldn't sell a car to save your life.
It's real.
I used to manage sales, and I would hire you, Alex. You drive me freaking crazy, but I would hire you
because I can sell.
Sausage Lord says, Marie is the only cis white woman on the panel. Do you feel scared?
No, I think I'm fine.
This one from RH says, Marie Fuentes. This one from Lies Fern says, if I can identify as a different race, then if I identify as 100% white, will I be able to join Nick's ethno neighborhood?
What? Say that again.
If a black dude identifies as being white, can he join your ethno club?
Oh, I don't believe in such things like that. And I'm going to be in the Mexican Italian neighborhood anyway.
Base.
Grays 174 says Catholicism is heretical. Nick, why do you think it's okay to pray to Mary?
I'm not getting into that. I mean, that's, if you want to look that up, it's not heretical. She's a mother of God. She intercedes on our behalf. This is Protestant nonsense.
Yeah, this one from a woman sounds kind of gay, so
well, we're not, okay. Vedic priestess.
Yeah, I feel like
this one. We have so many.
That's okay. Keep going.
Quick. Robin says, Nick, Rome broke from Orthodoxy. Protestants followed.
That's not true. Orthodoxy broke from Rome. Peter's the leader, obviously.
Surfing Cowboy says, a troon, a commie that aligns with every corporation, the 6 millionth comedian, a cat boy, a tech support agent, a random. Let's see. What is this? Okay.
He's just insulting everybody on here.
What is it?
That's what he's doing.
It's a transgender person insult. Nice job, James. That's like the N-word for trans people.
Yeah.
You literally.
Really
yes. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. It sounds like I'm joking, but it is. It's like a Kiwi Farms insult for fucking trans people. I don't know if it came from Kiwi Farms, but yeah.
Sorry, I did not know that, for real. And then the commie. So for real, sorry about that. And then the commie, that must be Brenton, though.
Yeah.
And then
wait, which one am I?
Well, the cat boy.
That's Nick.
It doesn't make sense because Catboy Cammy was a Catboy.
Clayton Hughes says, "Are Destiny and Nick best friends?"
No.
Yes.
We're not best friends.
Yes, we are.
Nick needs to work on his shit a lot, okay? He's got some things.
We are.
He's inconsistent as fuck. He's asexual and incel at the same time. Doesn't even make sense. They
duality of man.
They threw the classic pray to Mary at you, which is an attack every Catholic has heard, and you let them get away with it. Okay,
because
these heathens. You're not even. You're not. Yeah. Okay. Doesn't defend his faith. Okay. Like look at this guy over here. Okay. Just unbelievable over here. He's got a lot of work to do.
You're embarrassing me.
He's got a lot of work to do.